Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow underway on this Tuesday edition, NFL Trade Deadline Day. Happy Halloween to all of you. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes YouTube streaming live there. You can join Chad in the chat. Just search out OutKick, subscribe to the channel there across the platforms, outkick.com and more. If you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Dan Dockich, host of Don't At Me across OutKick. He'll be with us in an hour from now. It's coming up in hour number 2. John McClain as well, as right after the NFL trade deadline hits, we'll talk with McClain on all things headlines across the league. Tim Brando, Timmy B, joins us in hour number 3. Jim Nagy each and every week as well. Chad, good afternoon. Plenty to discuss today.
Hutton. So it is Halloween.
It is?
I'm going as Connor Stallions.
Oh, there you go.
At a Central Michigan State game this year. Gray shirt, sunglasses at night. My future's so bright I got to wear shades, much like Connor Stallions. His future not quite as bright as mine right now, especially his future in college football, Hutton, as this story continues to get crazier and crazier around Michigan football and Connor Stallions. And I keep thinking there's only one real way to negatively affect Michigan and hit them where it hurts. Well, there's 2 ways. One is going to happen. Their coach is not going to be their coach anymore. It's not going to happen during the season, I don't think. But after this season, I'm pretty sure Jim Harbaugh is probably done at Michigan. Whether he goes and leaves himself for the NFL or Michigan has to make a change, that's one way to hurt them. The other way to hurt them is to remove their eligibility from this year's college football playoff. That remains the big question, Hutton.
The only way to do this, and we'll get into the ways to show discipline or enforce discipline. One includes a long, drawn-out process. The other, maybe not. But, Chad, every day there's new information with this, new evidence or alleged evidence. And the very latest is Chad's costume is spot on, where allegedly Connor Stallions is seen on the sideline of the Central Michigan at Michigan State game to open the regular season on September 1st last month. And he's on the sideline, goatee, sunglasses at night, and he's standing with a visitor's sideline pass, visitor coach's staff, with the pass around his neck, hat on, sunglasses at night, goatee, arms crossed, next to the offensive line coach who's signaling plays. It's also got the director of recruiting nearby. And, Chad, he's on the visiting sideline against a future opponent that they're playing, Central Michigan playing Michigan State. And at least on the FS1 broadcast, anytime that when the play would end towards his area, the person would cover his face. This continues to mount. And the question is, what happens next with the story? And also, is there enough evidence to enforce discipline? From the NCAA's perspective, just based on the timeline, even though they act like they try to speed up the process of investigations and enforcement, they really don't. It takes a while. It would be a notice of allegations, notice of investigation, and then one of 4 different things could happen, from Michigan accepting penalties, self-enforcing penalties, appealing, multiple things. That takes a while. We're way past the college football playoff by then. The Big Ten, though, can act. And there is a committee made up of the Big Ten presidents, ADs, that would vote to enforce a possible penalty that Tony Petitti, the commissioner, could lay out and direct. They can't add to the discipline, but they could reduce it. They could also approve it or deny it. But here's the thing. Once it is approved, any discipline there is from the Big Ten's perspective, Chad, there's no appeal process. It's enforced. So that is really the only way that we don't see Michigan being a part of the postseason. And it's not going to be, we get the college football playoff rankings for the first time this evening. The committee, taking a glance at who's making the rankings tonight, and really the top 6 is what we're going to be really dialed in on. I don't think they enforce anything off the field here in how they view the Wolverines football staff. I don't know how you come down on this, Chad, but if I'm on the committee, I'm basing this on what's in front of me and allowing the investigation process to play itself out. And when they're not eligible, they're not eligible. Until then, they're in the playoff. And I'm eager to see where they rank with the top 4, because I don't think they're outside of the top 4. And if they are, that is a glaring signal that the committee's doing more than what they have to do so far. It's made up of ADs from Houston, Kansas State, Kentucky, Marshall, Miami of Ohio. Ward Manuel, the AD at Michigan, is there, as well as Navy, NC State, Nevada, Notre Dame, Rutgers, and Washington. Boo Corrigan, AD at NC State, is the chair of the College Football Playoff Committee. When the rankings come out, he's got to be asked about what's taking place off the field with everything going on around the sign-stealing saga and scandal with Michigan. But I don't see this selection committee playing judge, jury, executioner until they're told, based on discipline, that they're going to exclude the Wolverines. Until then, we're going to see the Wolverines in, and they're good enough to win it all this year, Chad.
Yeah, and I keep going back to this. It's mounting evidence now, right? I mean, whoever waited this long to really lay the hammer down on Michigan, it actually looks to be a smart move, because they allowed them to continue acting in this way as if they were undetected when they really were detected. And now there's all this evidence. We've been showing you the Connor Stallions on the sideline at a Central Michigan State game. I keep going back, and this is a question being thrown about in our YouTube chat right now. Is Michigan really this stupid? Were they this brazen? I mean, you've got a guy that's a member of the staff that's on the team website, decked out in Central Michigan coaching gear on the Central Michigan sideline as they're playing Michigan State, one of your top rivals. Hutton, I'm with you. I don't think anyone's going to act before the end of the season, but this is where you hit the Wolverines where it hurts. If you take them out this year, because right now it's all about this year. They have a team on the field. Now, we can argue how much they're being aided by stealing signs and all that, whatever. The fact is, with J.J. McCarthy at quarterback, with this roster, with this schedule, they have a very good chance of winning a college football national championship. And that's all that Michigan fans are concerned with right now. So if you really want to negatively affect them and show that this is not right and you can't do this and you can't go beyond the rules and negatively affect not just the team you're playing, but possibly other teams in other games. By the way, we don't know if he's just scouting in this game or if he's actually trying to help Central Michigan beat Michigan State, which goes back to what I was saying before with the South Carolina allegations. It's one thing to just help your own team. It's a very different thing to orchestrate intelligence to negatively affect games not involving you. At that point, this is espionage affecting all of college football and not just Michigan Wolverine football. This is bad. This is really bad. And we got photographic evidence again of Connor Stallions at a game. Here is where other conference members can step in if they're really angry about Michigan and force someone's hand. Purdue, Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. I'm willing to bet those 4 programs, we know a couple of them at least, are of the 13 of the 14 that have been illegally scouted by Michigan. If one or multiple of those programs just come out and say, we're not playing them, we don't feel safe, we don't think it's right, we don't want to play this game, and they're public about it, what the Big Ten will likely say is play the game or you forfeit. But it at least makes them say something about Michigan. It makes them put something on the record. And they could make things very uncomfortable if someone just comes out and says, we're not doing it. Or if all of them say, we don't want to play Michigan based on what we know and what we've seen and the evidence collected. Don't think that'll happen, Hutton.
No.
And I think if it did happen, the Big Ten would just say play it or forfeit. But I don't know that we're going to get any big statement because they're going to hide behind the cloak of ongoing investigation. We won't comment further until we have more information or the investigation is over. That's what everyone is going to attempt to do here. If I'm a team that's already played Michigan or I'm going to play them, I don't accept that. I don't. And that's what it's going to take is someone stepping up and saying, yeah, that's not going to work here.
So the story has gone from Stallions being in the stadium, purchasing tickets, to now being on the sideline. This is the first report and hard information on this. And at least if the Michigan fans on social, some at least, are still saying it's not him. Central Michigan is investigating who this was and how he got on the sideline. They're admitting they have no idea who this person is based on their staff that would have traveled with them this season. And this was the day before Michigan opened their season against East Carolina. And a part of all of this, Chad, is he's decked out in Central Michigan gear. There are staff members with Central Michigan that have ties to the Michigan staff. And, yeah, the saga continues. It continues to mount, and we're not near the end of the evidence that will continue to pour in.
Yeah, let me also
It's
say
a
this.
Daily occurrence.
Central Michigan needs to get in a lot of trouble for this, too. Because there is no way that people didn't know who he was or what he was doing. They're every bit as guilty as Connor Stallions in this whole thing. So, not that as many people care about the fate of Central Michigan, but Jim McElwain and that program need to face some sort of punishment for allowing a Michigan staffer to give him Central Michigan gear and put him in a spot where he looks like a coach on the sideline as they're playing Michigan, one of their biggest rivals. They need to be punished as well. And honestly, that photo to me is enough to punish them. Unless someone comes out and says that's not Connor Stallions, which no one on any side of this has claimed yet, Central Michigan needs to face some repercussions as well.
And Michigan State didn't find out about this today, by the way. The report states that they've known about this and they have been in talks with the NCAA about it previous to this report today.
Yeah, they've been cooperating with the NCAA on it.
Yeah, Central Michigan AD Amy Folan released a statement on the matter saying the university is looking into whether Stallions was on the sidelines that day.
Well, and if you remember, some people were making fun of it at the time, but Michigan State took over 24 hours when informed by the office the week of the game to decide whether or not they wanted to play, that they were considering not playing the game with the information they had. Well, this is part of the information they had.
That's right.
That they had already tried to negatively affect Michigan State by being on the sideline for Central Michigan. I'm telling you, this more will come out, and there is going to be a documentary one day, and Connor Stallions is going to tell all, whether it be a book, on a Netflix docuseries, or whatever it may be. This is bad. Connor Stallions may shut up because he loves Michigan football so much, but he's got no future in college sports or football. So he's got nothing to lose if and when he wants to tell his side of the story and explain to the extent they went to not just orchestrate something on behalf of Michigan, but sabotage other programs that could affect Michigan. This looks terrible. We can say this every time. We'll wait for the investigation to finish. There's going to be more information. Michigan saying nothing. But on its face, that image of Connor Stallions in sunglasses on the Central Michigan sideline, a Michigan-paid staffer wearing Central Michigan gear in a game against one of Michigan's biggest rivals, this is a dumpster fire right now at Michigan. And I will reiterate this to everyone I know that's ever worn maize and blue. As a fan or a player, don't give me this crap about Michigan man ever again. Ever. You have lost that right for eternity. No such thing anymore. You're just like the rest of us. You're like the rest of the grimy world of college sports that is win and nothing else. You're no better. In fact, right now, you may be far worse.
And keep in mind, this story will get far worse because Michigan State has known about this. They've been in talks. They've been cooperating. Michigan allegedly pulls the offer for the contract extension with Harbaugh, which he's denying but not really denying. There's a lot of info and detail beneath the surface that has not reached the media yet. It will, and it's bubbling up one after the other on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. Chad, Dabo Swinney, he continues to lay it out there on his coach's show. And this is a great example of reading a quote versus actually hearing a caller and then hearing Dabo Swinney's response where he told a caller to the Clemson head coach's show, hey, if you want the job, go ahead and apply for the job, speaking on behalf of the 4 losses that have taken place.
Yeah, it's important to hear this quote at some point because, honestly, I had Davey play the actual call. At first, Trey Wallace, if you want to hear it, he's done a great job. Covers college football only for OutKick, does terrific work, and he's posted the entire audio. But the audio that Trey posted was only of Dabo Swinney. So I heard his portion of it, and I thought he was terrific. Davey played the entire call. Shocked that the host of the Dabo Swinney call-in show allowed this thing to go on for as long as it did. It was a very young fan. Sounded a little bit punkish, but quite frankly, not nearly as bad as I expected based on Dabo's response. Even said, I'm a generational Clemson fan. My grandparents, went to the school and went to games, and I've been going for years. And essentially asked the question, why are we paying you $11.5 million for a 4-4 season? And said, it appears to everyone that you got too cocky, that the program changed after 2018, the second national title. And he even quotes Proverbs back to the man of faith and says, pride come before the fall. Are you familiar with that? And Dabo Swinney eventually kind of ends the call, and he goes in on a 5-minute rant where he destroys this caller. Hutton, we'll talk more about it later. He's got some great points he brings up. We should
be able to play the audio.
There is some, absolutely we should be able to. He's got some other points in there that proves the caller's point a little bit. I think of what he's saying about pride coming before the fall and how he talks about himself. We'll discuss it in detail later.
Yes. Plus, NFL trade deadline, a lot of moves, big moves already today, especially on defense in the NFC.
Quote, a good state champion caliber high school boys team would smoke the best team in the WNBA. Then this weekend, after the video was posted and the critics, of course, came for him, he doubled down on what he said, posting this on X. Quote, it's sexist to say women's basketball players aren't as good as men's. That was a question, obviously. It's my opinion, and I'm putting $1 million behind it. If I'm wrong, the WNBA team can take my money and make more from one game than they do for the entire season. Okay, so let's get into this because obviously there's a lot of people out there who are just assuming that Clay is being sexist, that he is trying to really punk the WNBA because let's be honest, the ratings for the WNBA aren't great, which is exactly why Clay made the joke at the end of that. If you were to give them $1 million for losing the bet, that would be more than the WNBA would make regularly for one game under normal circumstances. But the fact remains that men and women biologically super different, and that's what he's talking about. We even look at a boys' high school basketball team and the makeup of their players, what they're able to do, their size, their skills, and look at the WNBA players who are oftentimes much older. They're professional basketball players, but still, the level of competition would not at all be on the same playing field. So, Chris, let's get into that. What is your take on this? The fact that people would say that, Clay, you're being sexist, when reality remains men and women, super different, even at very different ages, different places in their careers, there would be no matchup whatsoever.
I don't even think it's questionable. I love that Clay took it to him. I think a lot of times silence speaks louder than words. The Las Vegas Aces haven't said anything in response yet. Mm-hmm. So, look, you're right. I dug into the rosters, the Las Vegas Aces, and then, look, I've spent some time training at IMG Academy. I work with athletes at a school called Lou High, which is one of the top programs in the country. And we have guards 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". We're on the Aces. The tallest players are 6'3" and 6'4", and those are their bigs. So they don't even have anybody to really account for the bigs on the male teams. And I don't know that it's how in any way is this a sexist
question
thing to say. Yeah.
Well, I have a woman, I think, who will be able to help answer this question. She is super smart. She's super intelligent. I am a big fan of her. Everybody, you're also a big fan of her. We all are. It just has to be said. So let's go ahead and bring in the woman of the hour, Riley Gaines. Hello, Riley. I'm happy to see you again. I feel like I get to spend so much time with you these days.
I know, right? Very good to see you, and I will say it is rainy here as well, which just sucks.
Okay, so are you, I know the last time we talked, you were like bouncing all over the place. Where are you right now?
I'm actually in Nashville, but headed to New York today. So I'll be on deck.
Okay, well, welcome. You get to go from rain to rain.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, Riley, let's get into the topic that we were just discussing. Obviously, Clay being a little bit sarcastic in the way that he framed the question, but he's saying he's willing to make a bet that the WNBA champions, still being the champions, professional basketball players, would not be able to hold a candle to any high school boys basketball team in the country. Is he being sexist, or is he just speaking facts that men and women are very different in terms of what they are capable of athletically?
Boom. Right there. It's not sexist to say men and women are different. It, like you said, it's reality, it's truth, it's common sense, it's logic, it's reasoning. We all know it.
Sixth and Peabody are located with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Coming up in about 40 minutes or so, Dan Dockich will join us, host of Don't At Me, plus John McClain, and a bit later, Tim Brando. Timmy B on, talking all things NFL and college football today. NFL trade deadline under an hour away from right now. Plenty of movement from the NFC, Chad, as we recap what has happened already today, about an hour or so ago. Chase Young, pass rusher from the Commanders. Well, Washington, the fire sale is underway. Chase Young headed to the San Francisco 49ers in exchange for a third-round pick. So Chase Young reunited with Nick Bosa from their college days. Bosa and Young played together for 2 years there. Now they're on the same defensive front out in San Francisco. The Bears, back-to-back seasons now, they have traded away a second-round pick in exchange for a player they hope will be long-term. That didn't happen with Chase Claypool. They have traded with the Commanders a second-round pick in exchange for Montez Sweat. So the two pass rushers felt to be building blocks at one point for the Washington Commanders, no longer, as new owner Josh Harris, who was behind the trust the process rebuild with the Philadelphia 76ers, well, that's about to happen again with the Washington Commanders. Joshua Dobbs, benched yesterday. Now he's potentially in line to be a starter with the Minnesota Vikings. Traded from Arizona to Minnesota, and this is now his fourth team in the last year, his seventh team since he entered the NFL. 10 career starts, 8 this year, 2 last year in the regular season with the Tennessee Titans. And while he will not start this week, that will go to their fifth-round rookie, and that's Jaron Hall. They're going to go with the rookie at quarterback in Minnesota. Dobbs can certainly step in and play and handle a situation. He's been able to prove that with multiple stops now, both in Tennessee and Arizona. And, Chad, Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver from Cleveland, now headed to Detroit. And the Vikings traded guard Ezra Cleveland, one of the good young offensive linemen. He's now in Jacksonville. Busy day, but some of the names that have been circulating, not movement there. No movement with Devontae Adams yet. Derrick Henry's not going to be traded. And as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, it's Dobbs to Minnesota. Vikings are not selling. The Commanders are.
Well, can we define for Chicago what buyer and seller means? I think the Bears are a little bit confused about, when you're a buyer, you're typically a contender. So let me explain this in really clear terms for the Bears, who did not understand this a year ago in the move for Chase Claypool and don't understand it this year with the move for Montez Sweat. Buyers are typically teams that in that given season have a reason to be optimistic about the way things are going to go that season, and they're a potential playoff team. So then you buy players that can come in and help you right away. Sellers are teams that don't have a future in that season, and they're unloading capital on their roster to get draft capital or future capital in return. This has been my tutorial for the Chicago Bears who don't seem to get it. Now, I understand they're going to try to sign Montez Sweat long term. They got a ton of cap room, and this is a move for the future also. But it is very bizarre when you look at Claypool, that did not work out at all a year ago, and now Montez Sweat. When you look at those moves, given where the Bears are as a team right now, which is they're not good, and they really need to start looking to the future. And I don't know that trading for a player right now is the way to do that as opposed to trading for draft picks. The San Francisco part of this makes sense. They're a contender. Yes, they've lost 3 straight, but trading for Chase Young to bolster an already really good pass rush, that makes sense for the 49ers. The big winner, I believe, for trade deadline day is Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs, when he was benched, in air quotes, in Arizona, we all thought it was weird because it sounded like he was going to continue being the starter right after the game. And then a day later, Jonathan Gannon says, we're going to go with Clayton Tune or Kyler Murray. And that immediately perked our ears up thinking he's getting traded. This is not a performance issue with Dobbs. He's not been the biggest problem in Arizona. That's a really bad roster and a team that's basically not trying to lose, but they've accepted their fate that they're going to lose a bunch of games this year and that they're going to try to draft very high next year. Dobbs going to Minnesota, not only does he have a chance to play for another team, he will eventually be the starter there after this week and getting acclimated. And Hutton, that's a team, you brought this up a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. They're now on the right path to possibly being a playoff team. The huge question mark, though, is can they do that without Kirk Cousins, who was playing really good football?
Well, reports are that they've received calls for some of their bigger names on defense, and they're holding firm that they're not moving away from players that are going to help them make a playoff push to the postseason. And we're seeing teams load up defensively in the NFC, the true contenders. Philadelphia trades for Kevin Byard last week, safety headed from Tennessee to Philly. Leonard Williams goes from the Giants to the Seattle Seahawks. And today, Chase Young, pending a physical, headed to San Francisco that will now have Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Fred Warner, and Javon Hargrave on that front 7. So load up. That's what they're doing in the NFC. And, again, we've got 40 minutes left before the deadline actually hits. Maybe we see one more big trade. Maybe it's, hey, follow the leader here. Keep up with the Joneses. What other defensive players could the NFC load up on? Find out. So far, busy, but not from the bigger names, Chad. The offensive names.
It's a thud. I mean, it's not.
Well, it's a thud, but
this
what
has
we
not
don't
been
know.
A big day.
But what we don't know is who was truly available versus the offers that were sent to teams.
Yeah.
You know, the Titans
we'll
wanted
some
a second-round pick
after
for Henry.
the fact, right? We'll get some
so.
big national reporters. Hey, this was floated out. This person was a possible trade. But as of right now, I think, again, the biggest winner in all of this is an individual. It's Josh Dobbs with a chance to prove that he can lead a good football team on a possible playoff run in Minnesota, which is the best opportunity he's had in his career. He was put in a really tough spot and did okay last year with the Titans, where he was a rent-a-player, came in for 2 games and nearly pulled it off and almost won in Jacksonville to get the Titans to the playoffs. Played admirably, I'd say, is how I would describe that performance in that opportunity. I think he's played pretty admirably in Arizona with the deck stacked against him.
Yes.
Now he gets a chance to go to a team that's got a great chance as the second-best team in their division to make a run at a playoff spot. So I think huge for Josh Dobbs at this point in his career. And then I think San Francisco, you know, if you believe in the potential of Chase Young, a really good defense may have gotten better.
Well, and as of today, the Vikings are in the postseason. They're the 7th seed in the NFC. Detroit won last night, so they've continued their separation in the rankings in the standings for the NFC North. They're at 6-2 now after knocking off the Las Vegas Raiders. But the Vikings at 4-4, you're right, squarely in the second spot, and right now battling with the Saints and the Bucks for the final wild card spot on the second half of the season. And it's a Vikings team that can certainly do some damage. Dobbs just doesn't need to lose games. And before that, Hall gets his chance, the 5th-round rookie. with Cousins officially going to injured reserve today from the roster with the Achilles tear.
And you're right. I say Dobbs is going to get that opportunity, but if Hall comes in and pulls a Will Levis from the Titans this past week and looks great and throws multiple touchdowns and the Vikings win, then they'll press pause on that Josh Dobbs experiment and go with the rookie. I think, though, it's going to be Dobbs eventually for the Vikings.
And a nice trade by Minnesota there, too, based on who was available and what their plan is. They still want to go young next year.
Yeah.
And they have a young quarterback 5th round. But, again, I think they want to go higher than that, and they want to load up on a young contract moving forward. And there are a lot of people saying that Chase Young is the rent-a-player. They're not going to be able to re-sign him in San Francisco. Keep in mind, if Purdy can prove that he's the guy, that's still a very great situation if you want to load up on big contracts. And they can't extend Purdy until after next season based on how the CBA is structured for rookie quarterbacks or rookie players in general. Got to be 3 years into the league. We'll say they've lost 3 straight, though. Meanwhile, Detroit gets back on the winning ways, and what was yet another matchup where both teams can't seem to find 20 points.
What
Raiders were awful.
What was that uniform for the Lions last night?
That was their
Is that their alternate?
Yeah, their alternate.
I didn't know if it was trying to be a throwback or a futuristic uniform or what. I can tell you this. When you go all gray, I say this is a guy wearing a gray shirt last night, but head to toe gray.
Yes.
It just looks like a sweat stain. But their whole uniform combo was one big sweat stain. I cannot stand when the Lions, who have that beautiful Honolulu blue in their home uniform, decides to go to a sweat-stained gray, head to toe, with some sort of weird bicolored bar in the middle of their helmet last night with a different Lions logo. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fashion critic when it comes to just out and about, well, in a cosmopolitan sense. I am a fashion critic when it comes to uniforms and sports, and I am giving a failing grade to the Lions and whoever decided to wear that uniform last night. That was atrocious. Couldn't stand that whole combination.
The Commanders now have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds after today's moves. And the last of those 5 picks it's the 5th pick in the first 3 rounds is probably pick 100 based on who they've been trading with. Chad, this is trust the process. Josh Harris is known for having a fire sale. He's not afraid to trade stars. He's done it. He's traded 3 now. He's got Montez Sweat and Chase Young out in Washington, and the 76ers sent James Harden packing to the Los Angeles Clippers yesterday. Harden gets what he wants, and they get the malcontent out. He's traded again. What, 4th time that a former MVP has been traded? That's the record. Most we've ever seen for a former MVP in the league.
Big winner here. Southern California strippers. That's the huge winner in this trade, given James Harden's past at frequenting gentlemen's clubs in different cities. This is a big boom for that struggling California economy that they really needed. So
the ones that are still there.
I want to thank both sides for doing what's right for the American people.
Thank you.
And the people of
James.
California to help stimulate a number of things, but also stimulate that economy down there in Southern California. So excellent work by them. And I would not want James Harden within 50 square miles of my organization if I ran an NBA team right now, but more power to the Clippers, who've got a lot of talent, and they feel like, that strong Clippers organization and their history is just right. They're like the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NBA. They're going to get him in there, and they're going to rehabilitate him. He's going to be ready to go and not be a problem at all. I'm sure there's going to be zero drama around James Harden as a Clipper. That's the organization to straighten him out. I really look forward to seeing how that works out for everybody.
I wish there was some drama with the World Series. There's just not. Did you tune in at all last night, Chad?
I didn't see a second of it. I am very consistent on this. I do not care about the World Series. I'm sorry if that offends some of you out there, but when my Braves went out, and then I was more concerned about the Phillies losing and not winning, being in the Braves division, the team that knocked them out, I really don't care. If I had to pick who I want to win, it's the team that's up 2-1 right now, the Rangers. Is who I'd like to see win this thing, but didn't care enough to tune in last night.
Rangers banged up.
And I'm not alone because it's the worst ratings on record for any World Series that we're witnessing right now.
It's a bad sign for MLB. And then you've got, the whole television structure moving forward. How are they going to handle that? Because you're right, it's a league where if your team's out, you really don't care what happens the rest of the way unless you're just the diehard. But even the diehards are football fans, you know?
Yeah.
And that's saying something if you'd rather watch Detroit Vegas last night than the World Series. And I think by and large, a lot of people would flip back and forth. And that's also a glaring issue with the World Series right now.
It's just really hard to bridge that gap from I'm going to watch my team and I'm going to talk about my team with friends that I know are into our team, and we're going to discuss that over the course of a summer or whenever, to national conversation piece. And when there's a big football game, when an NFL playoff game, this is the analogy I always use, NFL playoffs start that weekend, you don't have to be a Raiders or Texans fan when those two teams play. Even if the game is awful with backup quarterbacks, as it was a few years ago, we're watching that game, we're tuned into it, we're talking about it as a sports nation, and that's just not the case with Major League Baseball when it gets on the national level. And that's the next step for baseball, which I believe took a lot of great steps this year. Attendance is up, local TV ratings up in almost every market. The game is speeding along in a faster pace. There were some really good individual stories, team stories throughout the year. But here we are in October, and we care about football.
Now embrace the individual personality. You know, that's the other part that the league isn't finding a hit on.
Well, they got to get Ohtani away from the Angels, much like Harden with the Clippers. You don't want your big star in the second biggest team in LA. You want him somewhere else.
Coming up on the bus, off the bus, big questions around sports, NFL, college football, and more. Straight ahead, right here on Hot Mic.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see, like, senile, not all there, probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody location, Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine. Happy Halloween to you. Chad, trick-or-treating later tonight?
Trick-or-treating later tonight. Fun night for the kids, fun night for the adults, walking around the neighborhood with their Yeti cups, drinking in the cold.
What's the average length of trick-or-treating for you and the kids? About an hour, or is it just you just hit one neighborhood and that's it, or what do you do?
I'd say it's about an hour and a half to two
wow.
total. We've in our neighborhood, we've got a good system where most everybody's ready to go for trick-or-treating, and there's a lot of kids in the neighborhood. So we stay in the one neighborhood. I would say we'll go below the average tonight because it's going to be about 35 degrees. And my kids have my oldest daughter is going to be Rey from Star Wars. And, I mean, it's not a lot of material on this outfit. So we've been trying to convince her you're going to need to wear, like, thermal shirt underneath.
Layers.
Probably bring a coat. You are going to die if not. And my youngest is going to be either a bumblebee or Minnie Mouse. I'm not quite sure. I think Minnie Mouse. No, a unicorn. She's going to be a unicorn.
Last minute.
That's
good.
got a little bit more material to it. But it's still going to be a little rough. So we'll see how long they make it. I'm guessing about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Be on the bus for an hour and a half or 2 hours.
We're going to be on the bus for trick-or-treating.
Time to go on or hop off the bus with Davey Hudson.
Guys, you're talking about trick-or-treating. What I did last year, I'll do it again this year, is I'll just turn the light on at the house and put a bunch of candy out front, and then I'll just say take as much candy as you want, but if you have a hot single mom, just leave the number. And then I do whatever I was going to do anyway.
You could put
evening.
a QR code up the house, like for hot single moms, just QR code here, and you automatically get their number.
I mean, surely the kids have memorized their mom's phone number.
Well, that's why you've got
if you want more candy, use this QR code.
That's why you've got to open the door, though, Davey, each time, in case for that situation.
You gonna have your Ring doorbell camera on so you can see them, just in case?
we don't have that. That'd be a good idea, though. No, I probably won't even be at the house.
I think tonight my wife will be staying home. She does not like the cold at all, to hand out Halloween candy while the rest of us go in a pack of probably about 10 kids and about 12, 13 parents as we just swarm the neighborhood spot by spot. I always like the houses you go to that they have like Jell-O shots for the parents. Like they've got like a garage party going on and they've got a table for shots for the parents with candy for the kids. That's always the happening spot in the neighborhood. It's fun times.
Yeah. And I mean, just I guess as we hop on the bus, speaking of hot single moms and somebody on the prowl, we're going to start in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And we're going to be talking about the New York Jets, Zach Wilson. And the Jets find a way to make the playoffs.
I'm on the bus with this. And this is me saying this as we go into November, and I never thought I'd be here, but I think it's because Aaron Rodgers is returning late in the regular season. He's seen throwing again prior to the game with the Giants. I mean, he's giving them every indication, the players on the roster, that he's coming back sooner rather than later. Wilson's not great, but he's also a part of some really tight, close wins for the Jets. They beat the Bills in a similar fashion to how they, beat the Giants in what was a punt fest but they end up getting that one play at the end that allows them to win a game. Those are the tiebreaker type games in the AFC for the Bills, but the wins down the stretch where you know you're getting Rodgers back and you're winning anyway without him that allow you to be a 7th seed. It's coming down to the final week of the season for them, but I'm on the bus with this because they continue to prove me wrong.
Davey, the YouTube chat is blowing up with people excited about you being on the prowl for hot single moms tonight that's dressed up for Halloween for trick-or-treating. They're very interested in this.
But, Chad, if you're a hot single mom, why would you leave the number for someone who's not going to answer the door?
No, the kid's leaving it.
No,
Right.
yeah, the kid's not going to do that. You got to be on the porch. I agree with Hutton on this. If you're
You
out
gotta
there,
answer the door.
if you're the one being sweet to her kids and giving them candy,
Right.
I know you probably don't want to set the bar too high, Davey, for what type of stepdad you're going to be for this mom. But still, that's a good first step to show that you can
You
be
have a
nice to the
questionnaire?
kids and talk about
Do you have any siblings?
Oh,
How many?
you look just like Maverick from Top Gun. This is a great outfit, kid. And then let them move along their way. But people in the YouTube chat seem to love it. Look, I love the idea of the Jets being in the playoffs. I'm with Hutton on this one. I'm on the bus. I think that defense is going to do enough, and the Jets will do enough to stay in contention for Aaron Rodgers to come back. And I think this is going to be maybe the most unlikely story of the season. Everyone wrote the Jets off when Aaron Rodgers went down with the torn Achilles. They're hanging around now. Don't look now, but Zach Wilson is improving. He's getting a little bit better. Not a great performance this past week, but I think they do enough, and they're gonna be in playoff contention, and they're gonna make it.
They've got to win their next two. They've got the Chargers at home, then they're on the road against Vegas. Then they play the Bills and Dolphins in back-to-back weeks. But then by then we're in December, and then we really start ramping up the Aaron Rodgers timetable. In a timetable that shouldn't be as fast as it has been so far.
And the good news on the Chargers and the Raiders, those are two teams that, as long as you don't beat yourself, you can beat them because they'll
right.
hand you the game.
Yes.
Like that's their MO. So if you just worry about yourself, they'll make the mistakes. So that's a good point there.
Jets right now, by the way, the 8th seed, first team out in the AFC currently.
Wow. All right, guys, we're going to head on down to Philadelphia, and the NFL will ban the tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it, this offseason.
On the bus, this is ending. It's going away. They are going to cite player safety on this and quarterbacks getting, hit hard from behind and shoved into the pile of bodies in this as a problem. I think coaches don't like it, going against it. I'm on the bus. I think it goes away.
I think it goes away because the owners of the teams where the coaches can't do this as well as Philly. Nobody can do it as well as Philly. Some teams are trying.
I saw the Lions pull it off last night on a 4th and short.
But for every one of those, there's like 3 that just don't look
very awkward doing it.
Yes, and I think the owners will push it through for the rules change, but it shouldn't be. I mean, it's just because one team is dominant doing it doesn't mean the other should, either not. It's a copycat league too. So, I mean, if it was that easy, teams would be doing it, and then we would absolutely see the rules change because we see more injuries. Chad, I think you're right. I'm on the bus with this, but they may cite the injury situation, but it's more or less just because Philadelphia is going to beat teams with it, and those owners are going to be behind the voting and passing new rules against it.
They did fumble. It finally was not successful this one time. So
those that are trying to uphold it are going to say, "Remember that one fumble, the one time it didn't
one,
work?"
Yeah, that one fumble.
Guys, you never know. It's like the one onside kick that I saw an onside kick work. I think for the Cardinals over the weekend. That one time it works. We got to keep going back to the wellhead. Remember that one time we fumbled? Got to keep it in because you never know what's going to happen on this play.
One time I beat Kevin down Cherry Hill.
Little Giants.
There you go. Yeah, you picked up on it.
You knew I'd be all over that one.
All right, guys, we're going to head on.
Rick Moranis classic.
And Ed O'Neill. And our next stop goes down to Athens, Georgia. The college football playoff rankings are going to be released tonight. And, guys, the committee will have Georgia number 1 this evening.
I'm on the bus with this, and I mentioned this yesterday. They're preseason atop the polls, and I think that affects everything here. I also think the off-the-field stuff with Michigan affects things too, even though I think Michigan ends up being number 2. They're not going to be number 1. I think it's the Bulldogs, Chad, and I think it is also about acknowledging and recognizing that we see Georgia really starting to put it together, even though we haven't seen them put teams away the way Michigan has. I'm on the bus with the Bulldogs #1 in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm on the bus for it also. I think it's the easy thing for the committee to do, and I think a lot of times they take the path of least resistance. So Georgia, 2-time defending national champion, as Hutton laid out, preseason #1, done nothing to drop off from that. I think you could argue others have looked more impressive, but regardless, I think it's Georgia at #1. I'm most interested in the television show tonight of the unveiling when Boo Corrigan is asked by, I'm assuming it'll be Reese Davis, that will ask the question about Michigan and how they view Michigan given the ongoing scandal. That's the answer I want to hear.
If you had to guess, what do you think Boo Corrigan will say?
They're eligible.
Yeah, that we looked at them like
They're
any
allowed.
other team because currently they're eligible for, so any ongoing investigation we can't factor in. I just want them to be clear one way or the other. If it is something they're factoring in or allowing to cloud their judgment of them, say it. And if it's something that has to be stricken from the record, like in a courtroom, when something is illegally said, say that.
Yeah.
That we've advised everyone, you can't think about this at all with Michigan. It's just about on the field.
Okay.
One or the other.
All right, I'm with you guys. Like, that is the enticing part about watching tonight. But we're heading along, and we're going all the way across the country to Seattle. And 3 weeks ago, I would not have been saying this, but right now, the Seahawks will win the NFC West.
I'm off the bus with this. I think it comes down to how they have to finish the season, and it is a tough stretch because they play San Francisco. They come up, I believe it's a month from now. They'll play San Francisco twice in 3 weeks, and in between those two games is Dallas. So Seattle's really good. Seattle is built to go on the road and win. I don't think they're going to win the division and be atop the West because I think San Francisco will put it together after losing 3 straight. Seattle can, but they won't, Chad. I'm off the bus with this.
Yeah, I think we're just witnessing a really tough stretch right now for San Francisco. I don't think this is going to become common throughout the year. I'm off the bus on this. The 49ers are the best team in that division. I still believe that. I think today's trade, by the way, Tim Kawakami, who covers the 49ers, saying there's going to be one more trade announced at some point for the 49ers today, to watch out for that. I think it's the 49ers division. Seahawks aren't winning it. Give me San Fran.
Well, we'll only have to watch out for about 8 more minutes.
Yeah.
That's coming with the deadline.
We'll see if he's right.
Okay, guys. And then finally, talking about San Francisco, we're going to end the line there, but Christian McCaffrey will be enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
On the bus. On the bus. Chad, he is the last of a dying breed. Maybe not the last. But where is the running back position 5 years from now? Where's the running back position in terms of value? Kids wanting to play the spot, right? If you want to look at a comparison, Deebo Samuel was used out of the backfield some in the passing game. He was adamant he wanted to be paid like a wide receiver and got it. But they were, giving him carries at one point due to injuries and things. McCaffrey does everything and does it very well. A chance to put a Super Bowl title on the resume. And when he's healthy, he's fantastic. Stay durable. He's getting in. I'm on the bus with this because the dude produces even when San Francisco's not playing well.
I'm on the bus too. I think he's a Hall of Famer when all is said and done. And where I think the running back position is going is a collection of late round picks that you plug 2-3 guys together on every team, and you don't have that dominant back. That is the front runner for every team. I think that's where, unfortunately, it's all headed.
Well, and also like the selection process, at some point, it's just your time. And if you look back on McCaffrey and compare him to what the guys at the position are doing in the current framework of what they're comparing you to, I mean, he's going to be a top 15 finalist. You get voted to the 10, and then you whittle down to 5. I think eventually he gets in. He's not a first ballot guy. But, Davey, yes, on the bus because of just the process that is involved here, and the talent and the resume will, I think, stack up and speak for itself.
They got a bye coming up this week, but the week after they'll be taking on Jacksonville, and I believe Shanahan will do everything in his power to make sure he gets that 18th consecutive touchdown. So it's another mark that he'll have to where he's alone in the record books.
Well, and in Carolina, the amount of yards, the total yardage, and the percentage that he would account for to begin his career there.
He was their offense.
Yeah, and now he is the offensive identity of San Francisco, despite all the talent that they have. He is the 49er offense. Wherever he goes, he racks up yards or injuries. Now, if he gets hurt again, who knows? He needs the title. That'll help him because he'll shine in the playoffs. He can do it all.
Yep.
NFL trade deadline about to take place in 5 minutes or so. We'll have the very latest with all the news that's taken place today, and we'll see if the Niners make another move right here at the very end of the deadline, headed into the rest of the regular season. Washington, big sellers. Dan Dockich weighs in on that and much more. Host of Don't At Me. He's the top hour 2 with us here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mike with Hunter Withrow, Tuesday edition, the Halloween edition of Hot Mike here on OutKick. We've got John McClain talking all things NFL trade deadline, which is just hitting across the National Football League. He'll be joining us in 20 minutes, where we've got plenty of moves this morning, but overall, not nearly the movement that we have been discussing as far as the rumors are concerned. Joshua Dobbs traded from Arizona to Minnesota. Vikings officially putting Kirk Cousins on injured reserve. They're going with the rookie of Jaren Hall, the fifth-round pick against Atlanta this week. Dobbs will step in as the backup, at least for the time being, depending on how things go. Of course, Kevin Byard to the Eagles last week. Defensive flurry of moves in the NFC. Chase Young for the Commanders. He's traded in exchange for a third-round pick to San Francisco. And Montez Sweat, also Commanders pass rusher. He's now in Chicago for a second-round pick in exchange. So the fire sale underway for the Washington Commanders and a new ownership with Josh Harris and company. Plus, Ezra Cleveland, talented young offensive guard in Cleveland, traded to Jacksonville. We say hello to Dan Dockich, host of Don't At Me, mornings right here on the OutKick Network. Dan, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, fellas. I thought I was going to see you at Clay's Bash the other night. I missed you.
Life
Where
happened.
You at? What are you doing?
Life happened. I could text you the reasoning if you'd like, but yeah, we've.
Don't worry about it.
I had a great. I did see your Halloween costume, Dan.
Yeah,
well done.
I told you earlier, Dan. I feel like I haven't been to Clay's party in about a decade. It's always the weekend where something is going on for me, and I just have not been able to attend in a while.
How about the detail?
But I know it's a bash. I know everyone had a blast out there.
How about the detail, Dan, of the setup?
Oh my God! I mean, like you walk in there and guys are jumping at you. And,
I know.
You know, people are coming out of the woodwork. I had to go back in the house. My wife and I brought a bottle of wine, and I had to put it back in the kitchen. I told the guy jump, and I go, look, don't jump at me. I don't want to drop this wine. You already got me once. You don't need to get me, again. But man, what an incredible, incredible setup. Really nice people there, and man, pretty nice neighborhood. Really nice neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Insanely nice neighborhood. Yeah, well done. A lot of fun. I started in on the old fashions, and the lady, I was going to have beer, but it didn't sound good. And then the old fashions, you know what? Good bartender, too. That always makes a party.
Yep. Heavy pour.
Yeah.
The heavy pour.
Old heavy pour,
long pour
at the Travis house. Every time there's a heavy pour there. I feel like Louisville fans probably have some heavy pours going on right now when they look at their basketball program. I know it's exhibition, but Kenny Payne, who first year was rough at Louisville, and Dan, you're just a couple hours up the road from that city and that program. They lose to Kentucky Wesleyan last night. Now, not only do they lose, they get out-rebounded by 14 to Kentucky Wesleyan. What in the world is going on with that program?
Nothing good. And, Kentucky Wesleyan was a Division II power, and sometimes those players are really good Division I guys for whatever the reason. But there's no excuse. Look, okay, your first year, you're Kenny Payne. The idea is you're cleaning house. Let's go. And, second year, you want to start getting enthusiasm back into the program. And, guys, you know this. It doesn't take much at Louisville. Just show up, and you'll get 17,000 fans in that joint. He's got a bit of a problem. Here's what you know as a coach. I swear to you, you know this. You go and you practice, and Kenny's been at high levels, so he'll know this. Is our team good enough to win? And then how good? How much? And sometimes you just know, like, man, this guy wasn't as good as I thought. That guy wasn't as good as I thought. And then you get into the first game, and you see other teams, and, a team like Louisville, being Louisville, you should beat Kentucky Wesleyan 20. Well, obviously you're not good enough to do that. So, you know what? You got to make everybody believe in you still as the coach in what you're doing, even though it's an exhibition. It's a long season, though. But, hey, look, I always said to people, the good teams beat the living hell out of the bad teams, whether it's an exhibition, whether it's non-conference, whether it's conference. That's what good teams just simply do, and Louisville's not a good team.
Dan, what do you think about this? Normally the college basketball season kind of has a rhythm to it. You get in the start of the season and you've got some bad teams coming to your building and it's not always packed, and you beat those teams bad. Then you go to a tournament, Maui or somewhere, and you're going to play some good competition, but it's usually in gyms that aren't packed. And then you get into December, and you got a couple big non-conference games, right? Then conference play starts, and you're getting ready. Now you've got these high-level exhibition games for charity with the NCAA rules changing a little bit. Tennessee wins at Michigan State in front of 15,000 people in an exhibition. You've got Illinois playing Kansas in an exhibition. What do you think about these exhibition games that's selling out the place before the season even starts? It's kind of odd to watch some of these games.
Yeah, I think they should do it in August. I think college basketball, I think it's fine. I mean, it gets fans, pumped up. In fact, it was funny. I didn't even know Kansas was playing in Illinois. I was just shuffling through, and the Big Ten Network popped up. But Calipari and I have talked about this. I've talked about it very publicly. John feels like if he talks about it, the NCAA will go the other way. But really, if you look at college sports, every sport except for basketball has 2 seasons. Volleyball season is in the fall. They play a kind of a practice exhibition season in the spring. Softball season is in the spring. Baseball season in the spring, but they both play exhibition type seasons against other teams, real games in the fall. Football, obviously, you have spring football. I believe this. I think college basketball is really overshadowed. I think there's no juice to college basketball right now. And part of it is, and most of it is, because football just dominates. That's why Calipari has been talking about do something like this. Get Tennessee, get Kentucky, get Indiana, get Duke, get Purdue. Come on into Gainbridge Fieldhouse here. Get ESPN to televise a little 4, 6, 8 team tournament in the middle of August when there's really nothing going on. There's no NFL, there's no college. You just don't have anything, no NBA. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I don't know why college basketball doesn't have 2 seasons. I guess it's because the season is long enough. But you know what? College basketball is really a one-month sport. It really has. And I didn't realize that when I was inside it because, you're working a game and you're into that, or you're working as a coach and you're into that game. But really, the casual fan equates it as a month of March. March is where college basketball lives, and that's not good. So I'm glad Indiana is playing Kentucky. I'm glad they renewed that series, and it's going to be on 3 out of the 4 years on a home site. I'm glad they're doing this exhibition game. I'm glad Kansas played Illinois, and I'm glad the Tennessee-Michigan State game was a great game. So I'm glad they're doing it, but you know what? When the best games in the preseason are in Hawaii or in Vegas or in the Bahamas, it's not as good as having them on home sites. It's just not. College basketball and the coaches got to figure this out, and I believe what Calipari said was right. Place them in August and have a good time with it.
Dan Dockett's with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. You can catch Don't At Me mornings here on OutKick. The saga is over for James Harden in Philadelphia, but it's always a saga with James Harden. I get it. He's a 10-time All-Star, former MVP, Dan, but what is this, the 3rd time in a row with the team he's asked to be traded from? And now the Clippers pick him up. Why would you want James Harden if you're an NBA GM right now, given the fact that, this is a trend that's going to continue and eventually he'll be asked to be traded in L.A. as well?
Because you think our culture's different, Jonathan. Our culture's different. We got 2 of the biggest failures with talent in the NBA on the same team, along with one of the great stories in the NBA. Kawhi Leonard's one of the great stories. Paul George, man, there's 2 things with Paul George. You know he's going to crap the bed in a big game in the playoffs, and you know he's going to be hurt half the time. And now you add James Harden to that, a guy that dominates the basketball. I think playing with James Harden would be miserable. I do. I think James Harden is about a lot of things, and they aren't winning. I think he handles the ball way too much. Standing around watching some fat guy with a beard dribble. I can do that at the LA Fitness down the street from my house if you want to know the truth. But I just don't think it's any fun. I think his story is old. It's played out. He's making $36.5 million. He's wrecked every situation that he's been in. So good for the Clippers. This isn't new for the Clippers. Going back to the Donald Sterling days, the Clippers always amassed talented yet troubled players and never won anything. Maybe this time it'll work. But I got to tell you, I like the trade because I don't really care about the NBA even a little.
Yep.
But I do like rooting against certain teams, and now I'm going to root like hell against the Clippers. So at least I got something out of this.
You mentioned fat guys down at the LA Fitness playing. Nikola Jokic, not a fat guy, very good player, but he did say that Chet Holmgren, after playing him, needs to be fatter. That would be his advice to him. He needs to fatten up a little bit because he's got some talent. That's always been the knock on Holmgren, though, Dan.
Yeah, Jokic is my Serbian brother, and every time I speak to him, I pound my chest and point to the sky. I really don't know why. But we don't know really how to speak. We don't know how to speak Serbian nuance. I'm Serbian and Polish, and what he meant was he's got to put on more muscle. He's got to add strength to his frame, but we don't know how to speak. We just say, hey, you got to get fatter, you know? And here's the deal with Holmgren. I remember seeing Anthony Davis as a 12th grader in Fort Wayne playing an AAU tournament, and his shoulders were this wide. Now, he was skinny, but, man, he had broad shoulders, so you knew he was going to be the perfect build when he got to college and he got into the NBA. Holmgren's shoulders are really narrow. They're about a half of the width of his hips, and that's not great. It's going to be hard for that kid to put on muscle, but, man, is he skilled. So my boy Jokic doesn't, you know, let's be honest, these dem and dozers, we call them. That's who we are. These dem and doze. We don't know how to really speak. So what we do is we say, yeah, you got to get fatter. There's no nuance. There's no like, hey, you got to get a nutrition, really watch your diet, get some protein, build up your strength. No. We just say, look, get yourself a pizza, get yourself 100 beers every night, quit smoking, because that's what Serbians do. And you know what? Go gain some weight. No vodka, straight beer, forget about it.
How about the story, Dan, with Connor Stallions allegedly on the sideline for Central Michigan and in sunglasses at night?
In full Central Michigan
gear. And Michigan's playing the next day, opening their season. And meanwhile, Central Michigan is, of course, playing on the road at Michigan State in this one. Every day there's something new. And at some point, when does it mount to a situation where Tony Petitti and the Big Ten do something based on the other member institutions wanting to do something?
Well, I got a text yesterday. I put this out last night. There's a film of this. I got a text, and I made a phone call to a Big Ten coach, and he told me this was coming out. And when I put the tweet out last night, a bunch of reporters saying, hey, was this the Central Michigan game? I was pretty much sworn to secrecy, so I didn't say anything. But the truth of the matter is Big Ten coaches are pissed off. I mean, big time pissed off. We saw a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, Michigan State threatened not to play Michigan because of how pissed off they were. And the coach that I talked to said every coach in the Big Ten has known about this. Nobody wants to rat anybody out. And now the dude apparently is in a disguise on the sideline. You can connect some dots. You know, the guy, McElwain, who is the coach at Central Michigan, when he got fired at Florida, he was a wide receivers coach in 2018 for the Wolverines, and so were a couple of his assistants were with that guy Stallion. So you can connect the dots. Apparently he's on I put out a tweet today. A friend of mine sent me a picture, and it's Stallion's ears, and it's the ears of Stallions at Central Michigan and the ears of it on the sideline. So now this great program, Yost Fielding or Fielding Yost and Bo Schembechler, Lloyd Carr. Now we're comparing ears of assistants doing nefarious things. It's awesome. Good for Michigan. Hey, look, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. But I agree with you because, and I believe this, and just having been a coach and being in these meetings, when other schools, when it gets public enough and other schools are pissed about it, I mean legitimately to the point where, look, you're going to have to do something. I said this, the court of law, innocent till proven guilty. But if I'm the Big Ten and I'm the NCAA, and if they do, I don't know that they do, but if they got all this information, I would lay it out and say, Michigan, prove us wrong. And if they can't prove us wrong, I got to tell you, I'm banning them from the college football playoff this year. Enough of this crap about punishing future teams or future coaches, that kind of stuff. We all complain about that. Enough of that crap. Screw that. This is the group that is cheating. This is the guy on the staff that is cheating. So if they can't disprove or they don't have an explanation, and it is proven that I'm saying no. You are ineligible. I don't know whether you're going to make it or not. You may lose to Penn State. You may lose to Ohio State. Who knows? I don't know. But if it is not, people say, well, that's a great precedent. Guilty until proven innocent. Well, this ain't a court of law. Everybody tells me there's no subpoena power with the NCAA. It's not a court of law. Good. Then here's my evidence. Show me you didn't do what we're alleging here with facts. And if they can't, I'm banning them. That's how I'm going about it.
Dan, it seemed that Dabo Swinney wasn't having it when Tyler from Spartanburg called into his coach's show saying, why the hell are we paying you $11.5 million a year to go 4-4, and went on a 5-minute rant. What did you make of that? I'm sure you probably wanted to do the same at some point.
Yeah, and I think both had a point. Hey, right? I mean, hey, look, dude, you're getting paid all this money. And, back when a coach was making, I don't know, 40, 50, 100 grand, whatever, all right, people would be like, hey, what are you going to do? But here, you're getting paid all this money to go 4-4, 7-7 in your last 14. So he's got a point. I get his point. It's a fan's point of view. And I also get Dabo's point. It's like, hey, man, shut the living hell up. It's much more than that, blah, 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 blah. But I will tell you this. What that guy said, when Dabo Swinney got away from the radio or the microphone, away from fans, hit home with him. I'm telling you it did. Because one thing that I always thought as a coach, and I did learn this from Coach Knight, you don't want to let the fans down. You got people that pay hard-earned money. You got people that love it. Why are we 4-4? Why are they paying us all this money? I said this all the time, and I got some interesting voicemails from coaches in the Big 12. I said one time on national TV, look at all these sidelines. These Big 12 schools pay a lot of money to coach basketball, and none of them can win in 15 years a conference over Bill Self. Doesn't make coaches too happy. Thanks for having me, fellas. I hear the Emmy music. I'm off the air. The hook is coming.
Right,
Dan.
I feel it.
The hook happens fast. Dan, thank you, man.
See you.
John McClain next. NFL trade deadline news right here on Hot Mic.
Dabo Swinney ripping his own fans. Dabo Swinney at Clemson is, I don't know, they tell me that he's the guy that doesn't like the transfer portal because he's made some comments that weren't exactly supportive of it. Dabo Swinney has done a job at Clemson that very few thought could be done. Clemson is a town about this big. Well, I better do this, not that, because that's like a white power sign idiots say. But it's about that big. The state is South Carolina. The state is not Clemson. But Dabo Swinney put Clemson in rarefied air. If you, a couple years ago, were going to name me the 3 best college football teams before Georgia's run here, you'd say Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. That's kind of who it always came down to. It felt like. So Dabo Swinney is now the victim of something that is good in one way, but it's bad in another. Incredible expectations of your fan base, meaning 10-2 ain't good enough. It just ain't. You can say whatever you want, but it just ain't. We got to be better. What? We're not in the college football playoff? What? We're not winning a national champion? What? We're 4-2? That's only winning 67% of our games? Here's what Dabo had to say. If you don't go undefeated, people say you're losers, that you're terrible. Let me tell you something. This is why football coaches for years and years and years and years fought the college football playoff. We're at a point in time, and I hate that, where people, if you don't go undefeated, you're losers. You're terrible. It's just a terrible mindset. Honestly, maybe we need to lose a few games and lighten up the bandwagon. Sometimes the bandwagon get a little full. That's the one good thing about going through a little bit of so-called adversity, is that you really find out who's with you and who's not. That's all crap. Let me explain to you Dabo Swinney's day, can I? Dabo Swinney probably wakes up around 5:30. Dabo Swinney smokes shit, shower, shave, shampoo, goes to the office. Probably has a meeting at 7. Dabo Swinney then is probably in different meetings with players or recruits, or maybe the administration, and maybe watching film, whatever. Then he has practice. Then after practice, he's doing the same thing. Then in the evening, he's making phone calls. Probably goes home around 10. At no point in time in his day, his week, his month, his year, is he finding out who's with us and who's not with us. It's not like there's a list. Now, maybe you find out what media member wants to rip you, but on a daily basis, a monthly basis, you're not finding out any of this crap. It's very simple. Coaches, if you want to know who's with you, understand that when you lose, nobody's really with you. If you want to know who's really with you, win. And then everybody's really with you. It's literally that simple. As my father used to say to me, Dan, we're with you, win or tie, and we ain't so sure about the tie. So shut up with that stuff, win some football games, and don't sweat it. Seriously, do yourself a favor. Work hard, grab yourself a glass of wine, go sit in your chair, and read a book instead of being on social media or worrying about who is with you and who is not with you.
A total of 15 trades across the NFL in 2023 once the regular season has started, and then a flurry of defensive moves today and at the end of yesterday as the deadline hit about 21 minutes ago. Hot Mike with Hunter Withrow across the OutKick Network rolls on. John McClain joins us. He's seen plenty of trade deadlines come and go across the league, more movement in recent years than in past years. John, Chase Young, the big news today, and the Commanders trading away Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Young reunited with Nick Bosa. He's headed to San Francisco. What do you make of the deadline moves, especially in the NFC?
First of all, I think that signals what we already knew. Ryan Rivera is going to be out with the Commanders. You have new owner, Josh Harris, and his group, and they're going to want their guy in there. And I was surprised they traded both defensive ends, Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Both of them are in the last year of their contracts, and they didn't want to pay them. And their defensive line had more invested than any defensive line in the NFL. Now they get a 2 and a 3 for a guy that was a second overall pick in Chase Young in 2020, and then Sweat. It's a good move for the 49ers. They reunite Chase Young from Ohio State with Nick Bosa from Ohio State as the defensive ends. And then they've got Eric Armstead at tackle. And then they signed Javon Hargrave from Philadelphia for a lot of money to play tackle. So they got a lot invested in their front four. And right now it's funny because the defense is not the reason they've lost 3 in a row. Brock Purdy's not playing well. Deebo Samuel's been injured, and Purdy's throwing too many interceptions, but they fortify that defensive line. D'Amico Ryans, who was the defensive play caller and coordinator for the 49ers the last 2 years, always talks about it starts up front. And when you look at what the 49ers have done, they don't have a first-round pick starting in their back seven. All their investments on defense have been in the line, and they've done it again. I think getting Chase Young for the rest of the season, they may re-sign him, they may not. I'm guessing they're not, considering how much they invested in Bosa and Hargrave, but they're playing to try to go to the Super Bowl.
Chad, who was it that had the report that the 49ers may make one more move?
Tim Kawakami.
So it's reported right now, John, that the Giants had a trade agreed to with the Niners to send a Dory Jackson to San Francisco, but the Giants failed to report it to the league in time.
Oh.
How about that?
Well, he's not going to move the needle for them, as you guys well know, because you saw him early in his career. But that kind of, when you have a clerical error, and it happens every once in a while, it makes you look buffoonish.
Yes.
And the Giants are bad enough on offense where they already look buffoonish. Now it's even worse.
Well, how do you feel if you're a Dory Jackson?
Right.
Doesn't
Well,
move the
you
needle
go
for the
for the
49ers,
guy.
but if you're him, moves the needle personally for me if I'm thinking, oh, I was out of here. but you guys didn't file the paperwork in time. I've got some thoughts about that as I continue to play for the Giants.
Just cut him with some kind of wink deal that you'll send him a pick in the off season, because that's torturing a guy to go from one of the worst teams to a team that should be a Super Bowl contender.
John, as of right now, the Vikings are in the postseason. Playoff picture, long way to go here. They're the 7th seed, last spot in the NFC. A month ago, we were discussing whether or not Cousins could be traded and what the Vikings might do at the deadline. And not only are they 4-4, they lose Cousins to an Achilles injury. He's officially on injured reserve, out for the season. They trade for Joshua Dobbs. They're starting the rookie 5th-rounder Jaron Hall on Sunday against Atlanta. What do you make of the Vikings sitting put, not making big moves, but going with Dobbs, at least for now, as the backup and trying to continue to make a run at this?
I guess that means Kyler Murray's ready to play for the Cardinals. They've said Murray or Clayton Tune, a rookie from the University of Houston, would be starting in their next game. Dobbs, it's amazing the way he's bounced around the NFL like a pinball going back to last season. And he played better than he's ever played with the Cardinals. It's a good opportunity for him. The kid from BYU, he's got 1 start. And the fact of the matter is, in that division's terrible, and they're the 2nd best team to the Lions. Lions have an easy schedule. There's a good chance they're going to end up with home field advantage in the NFC because of the schedule and the fact that they're good. They rebounded nicely from that humiliating loss at Baltimore. But, boy, Cousins, I guess now, if I'm him, I'm going to Aaron Rodgers' doctor, and I'm doing everything the exact way Rodgers is doing, because Rodgers is out there warming up on the field before games, and Cousins is going to be an unrestricted free agent. No, they're not going to re-sign him. They're going to be in that draft hell part where they're in the middle of the draft, which is going to be hard to get a first-round pick unless you hit a home run like Will Levis.
John, can you walk me through the Bears' decision-making process here in terms of what constitutes a buyer or a seller? Because 2 years in a row, they trade for Chase Claypool, doesn't work out. Now they trade for Montez Sweat. I know they got a ton of cap space moving forward, but what are the Bears trying to accomplish here?
They think, I guess right now they're not the worst team in the league. Fields has got to come back. I guess they probably talked to the agent about parameters for a new contract, and they'll have enough money to sign him. He can't. I don't know if you'd be bummed or not. You go from one bad team to another bad team, and you can't ever have enough pass rushers. But I think they're thinking about next season, and they couldn't get somebody in the 2nd round, rush quarterback like Montez Sweat, so that's why they did it. They got a lot of draft choices thanks to that deal they made with Carolina.
Yeah, I think about 2 first-rounders. They've got a 3rd round or 2 4th-rounders too, I believe, plus back end of the draft picks. John, you mentioned Will Levis. Give us your take on what you saw, the 4 touchdown passes, 3 to DeAndre Hopkins. He doubled the amount of touchdown passes in one game that Tannehill had to that point in the season. And, Levis's debut now turns into a Thursday night football game where he will face off against Kenny Pickett. According to Pickett, he's starting on Thursday, and it will be Levis again for the Titans on a short week, I should say.
Well, you guys saw Marcus Mariota do the same thing in his debut, right?
Yeah.
So that just shows you got to pump the brakes, because I know when Mariota did that after being a 2nd-round pick in 2015, everybody's like, wow, this guy's going to be great. And Levis has got the great arm. He got rid of the ball quick. When I watched him, and I was covering the Texans game against Carolina, but I was watching as much as I could of that because I wanted to see the jerseys, which I thought looked great.
Beautiful.
I think I'm the only person in Houston that feels that way, and I'm still getting hammered here for thinking it was great that they won them. It looked like a great weekend all around. Billy White Shoes Johnson going in the Ring of Honor, Warren Moon, honorary 12th man, is that what they call it?
Yep.
And then every time I look up, Diop looks like he did early in his career, having a long touchdown catch. I can't remember the last time he averaged 32.5 yards per catch. Tells me they need to get him the ball more, right? He's got to be the happiest player there. I never thought they were trading Derrick Henry or DeAndre Hopkins once they decided to go with Levis. How stupid would that have been to go with a rookie quarterback and take away his best weapons? If you're putting a rookie quarterback out there, you need the talent around him so you can get a better barometer about how the guy can play. And they need to decide if he can play before they make their picks next year. So I was really happy for Diop to have 3 touchdown catches. He looked like the old Diop, and I'm sure he's feeling a lot lighter today after that great game and not being traded. And so they're now tied with the Texans for second place, 1.5 game ahead of the Colts. It looks like the Jaguars are going to run away with the division, but they're still in the wild card race.
You're not the only one that's praising the Oilers Love You Blue unis that the throwbacks. University of Houston there was wearing the throwbacks, and the NFL sent them a cease and desist.
Which I think is ridiculous because the color was off. And because as soon as I saw that uniform for the first game, I looked at it. I said, that's not Columbia blue. A lot of people think any shade of light blue is Columbia blue. No, it's not. The numbers were different. Rice has won it. There's high school teams here that wear it. What I think, and I'll tell you a story. Everybody says it's all about the Titans, and it might be. But I remember one time, Bo Eason, former Oilers safety, he was an actor and a writer, was doing a one-man play called Running the Litter. And I found an Oilers jacket, a big one that you would wear on the sideline in cold weather. Looked great. And some Love You Blue cowboy boots like Bum Phillips used to wear. And I bought them for like $50 at a fair. And I asked Bo, because his one-man play was with a locker that was Columbia blue. And I said, do you want to put this in the background? So the Oilers were all for it. And they asked the league if he could do it. And they said no. I told him we'll do it anyway. So everybody wants to blame the Titans, but sometimes it's NFL properties. They rule with an iron fist because they don't want anybody ripping them off. They don't want anybody making money. I think what Houston should have done, contacted them, said, we'd like to do this one time as a tribute to the Houston's football heritage. And I don't know if the NFL would have said yes. I'm kind of thinking the Titans would have, and the NFL probably would have said no.
How wide open? I mean, we know it's very wide open. The AFC right now. Kansas City was at the top. All of a sudden, they lose to Denver. Meanwhile, Buffalo, you've got Baltimore, Miami, Jacksonville. They all win again. Miami and Kansas City face off in Frankfurt this weekend. It is a dash to the number 1 seed, and it's up for grabs right now. It's not just necessarily Kansas City.
They got problems on the outside. They need a receiver like Tyreek Hill. You guys talking about Oilers history. Tyreek Hill is the first guy to have 1,000 yards in 8 games since Charlie Hennigan with the Oilers in 1961. That was the last time a Houston Pro Football team won a championship. Second year of the American Football League, Oilers won their second championship. They were loaded with offensive talent, and they threw the ball all over the place. And they were fun to watch because I was 10 years old, and I watched them on NBC every week while I watched the Cowboys on CBS. And I'll tell you, the Chiefs, the coolest thing I saw over the weekend, Chiefs lose at Denver, break their long losing streak against Kansas City. And as soon as the game ended at Mile High Stadium, they started playing Taylor Swift, and the song they played for the Chiefs was Shake It Off.
It was Mahomes' first loss on the road in the division.
It's crazy.
It was amazing. And he
incredible.
Had
13 straight or 12 straight against the Broncos, too.
It was unbelievable. And he looked like he could use another receiver. Their defense has played above and beyond what anybody thought. But Mahomes, they think he's just going to make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what? And even he needs help sometimes.
John, also crazy, the Jets are 4-3. Wasn't pretty against the Giants, but they win it in overtime this weekend. Are they going to stay relevant for a possible Aaron Rodgers mid-December return at this point?
Well, I just can't imagine. I noticed in Vegas now, it was Dan Campbell is the leader for Coach of the Year, Mike McDaniel, number 2. D'Amico Ryans is number 3. Now he's 4. Number 3, Robert Saleh. Saleh has done an outstanding job. Great running game, really good defense. Zach Wilson's not winning, but he's not losing. I'd feel bad if I'm Zach Wilson and I keep playing well enough to keep winning, and all of a sudden I'm on the bench. But he would understand. And watching Aaron Rodgers warm up on the field before games. You couldn't tell the guy had his Achilles surgery, and that's why that's got to give Kirk Cousins a lot of confidence in his rehab to be ready before next season because he's going to have a new zip code.
Next week's headline today, John, if Cincinnati beats Buffalo this weekend, the Bengals are the talk of the league a week from now.
I don't know that the Bengals aren't the best team. You know, they started 0-2. Joe Burrow had the calf injury. Now they've bounced back. They just won big in Santa Clara to beat the 49ers on the road. It's a tough schedule for them, but they're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. Everybody thought they would be. Joe Mixon in the running game is working better. Joe Burrow looks fantastic. I don't know right now. They're not the best team in the AFC, but we see how quick it can change because 3 weeks ago, we said the 49ers and the Chiefs.
No doubt. John McClain, you can check out the great work, audio, writing, and more, sportsradio610.com. Joins us weekly, all things NFL. John, always great, man. We'll catch up soon, and enjoy Halloween.
Every week I do a video with Mattress Mac at Gallery Furniture, and we put it on sportsradio610.com, and I tweeted a lot, and he said, tell those guys at OutKick I said hello. Hello.
Love Mattress Mac.
Yeah, love Mattress Mac.
He loved the Phillies getting ousted as much as I did, the way they treated him a year ago. Those damn Philly fans.
But boy, he was heartbroken that the Astros got ousted.
Well, they won it last
Thanks
year.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks,
See you, John.
You know who didn't win the World Series last year or this year? The Phillies. They didn't do that.
Before that,
or 3 years before that.
Chad is very
The
happy.
Braves won the year before that, in fact.
If the Philadelphia Phillies were in, though, Chad, you'd have a reason to watch, to root against.
I would. I'd be all Rangers then.
That's right.
Now I just don't care.
Coming up, NFL overreaction, and a coach is not considering a quarterback change. We'll tell you who that is and why straight ahead. Hi, Mike with Henry with her rolls on across the OutKick Network.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, like who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm gonna say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network here with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Yeah. Chad,
not a big Halloween guy over here.
Really?
Yeah. I enjoy the time of year. I enjoy the fall foliage. I enjoy the food and drink surrounding this time of year. I enjoy football.
Not dress up.
I'm not a big dress up guy.
That's fair.
Not a huge Halloween party guy.
I'm not either unless I have someone help me with an idea.
Yeah.
I'm not good at coming up with that.
I do like now, like the trick or treat routine for both like kids and adults is fun. But yeah, never been a huge Halloween guy.
Are you?
Halloween never gets better than when you're either a child and you get to trick or treat, or you're a very young adult and you go to the parties. You know what we're talking about. The parties in like your early 20s.
Yes.
That's fun.
What about as a parent getting to go through the candy and pick out what you like?
I don't normally do that.
You know? My dad did that.
He
would pick out some things that he wanted to snack on.
I never know quite where everything is in my own house when it comes to food. So I'm very bad about investigating and knowing where it is. And then a month from now, I'll hear, oh, well, there's an entire box of Halloween candy that's underneath this, behind this, okay. That's when I find out about it. It's like a month later. Oh, so I can get whatever Reese's cup I want out of this box? Great. I'm going to do that now. But
Chad,
I'm always too late to the game.
This is a good opportunity to teach your kids about taxes. It's called the dad tax. You
Yeah.
take 10% of their candy, and you just say, this is what the government's going to do to you for the rest of your life.
It's actually
take more than that if you want.
Yeah.
It's like a civics lesson is what Davey's proposing here. I kind of like that. I need to start with that. Maybe tonight I'll start to actually see what they're getting. Typically, like my kids are in a dead sprint. I have to tell them to slow down and say thank you to everyone, to actually go up, say trick or treat, get what and say thank you, because they're just
scooping.
It's like a supermarket sweep. Back in the day, it's like they feel like they have a 10-minute
You have
window.
to leave some candy, but take as much as you can.
To hit every house. No, it's just like we're sprinting to the next. Okay, slow down. We're going to get to these. Slow down. They're just a dead sprint to the next house to get as much candy as possible.
You got to beat the other kids there because they're doing the same thing.
It's also, I just saw here in Nashville tonight, that's going to feel like 29 degrees.
Well, that means it's
at
29
7
degrees
p.m.
to me.
Yeah.
Feels like temperature is what.
Go ahead. Audrey.
That is what the temperature is.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If it feels 29, by God, it's 29 degrees.
So I say that to know that it's going to be about an hour. We're going to have out probably total because they're not
it's
wearing
being
a ton of
reduced.
clothes with their costume. We're down to an hour now.
You need them to sprint then to stay warm.
Do you feel the same way about room temperature, Hut?
Yes.
I mean, I that's how I approach it. I mean, it could be 50 degrees in the building, and it's like, yeah, that's room temperature.
Don't tell me it's 50 if it feels 43.
No,
it's 43.
Room temperature is 72. That's a standard set for room temperature.
Room temperature for me is just it's like a 5-degree difference of variance.
Our buddy Nate Bargatze crushed it on SNL.
Oh,
And there's
yeah.
an amazing sketch with him as George Washington.
Yeah.
And it's just basically a way to talk about all the differences that America is going to have from the rest of the world, and talking about Fahrenheit and then centimeters and meters versus miles and inches. Terrific. But it's made me think about it with our discussion of what is room temperature. Room temperature is 72. Now, I think, Davey, what you're getting at is what is comfortable for room temperature is different to every individual. So your room temperature, if it's 62, I'm guessing you like it cold.
That'd be correct.
So your room temperature is 62, right? But
That's
standard
a little-
room temperature is 72.
62 would be on the
Room
crazy.
but Davey's taking like room
I would say
temperature
68 to 73 is the good variance.
Davey's saying room temperature is whatever the temperature is in the room you're in. No, room temperature is 72. You can be in a room that's 55, or you can be in a room that's 81. But room temperature standard is 72.
But what does it feel like, Chad? That's my standard.
Oh, inside feels like what the actual temperature is.
Not
You don't have
necessarily.
to factor in wind chill.
There's wind chill
add
indoors.
7 people into a room. It doesn't feel like the room
Yeah,
temperature.
feels like I'm with you, Hutton. I'm agreeing with you. Outside feels like should be the temperature. That's factoring in wind chill and other atmospheric conditions. Unless you are in the biodome from the Pauly Shore movie and it's that giant, there's not going to be atmospheric conditions in the home or wind chill.
in the home. But what about the
So
studio?
the temperature is the temperature
what
at
about the
home.
studio, though?
Yeah, we have these
With
lights.
7 people in.
Well, in here it's
Heat
quite
everything
high
up.
ceilings, so
Yeah.
that
So what it may
happens.
say on the wall is not what the temperature is in the room. That's my point.
But human bodies raise the temperature in the room. So it's still the temperature. Whatever the temperature says, it'll actually raise it with it. That's the
it's
temperature.
very difficult to get the temperature up or down in this room.
Who can spell
on
Fahrenheit?
on the daily.
No one's going to be
no
able
one
to do
knows. No one knows how to do that, Chad.
FAHRENHEIT.
Congratulations,
I think you
Dave.
got it.
Fact of the day: Davey can spell Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
So another fact: Kyle Shanahan says he's not considering a quarterback change from Brock Purdy to Sam Darnold. Good.
Nor should he.
No, don't play into the whole like back and forth on is he elite? Is he? I told you he wasn't elite. No one was claiming Brock Purdy's elite, but he's a good quarterback.
And the best you have on your roster.
You know who else no one's claiming is elite? Sam Darnold. But who makes quarterbacks great in a really great setup? Kyle Shanahan, for the most part. And he knows what Brock Purdy is certainly capable of. So we all do within the structure of that system, within the makeup and moxie of what Purdy has meant to that team when he started 10-0 as the starter in the regular season. Now's not the time to move on. They're bolstering their defense. They're going with what got them on a stretch run last year, and that was on a run to the Super Bowl prior to quarterback injuries that included Brock Purdy with the elbow. Chad, it's the right call, and it's something that can spiral out of control. If you need a boost, you go to Darnold. I thought whenever he hit the head on the turf again this past week that we were going to see something similar to what happened with Tua, where he's in concussion protocol, plays. He took another hard hit. Nothing came of it. It just looked bad. And I thought we were going to see Darnold anyway. But they cleared Purdy. He goes out and plays. He's their guy.
Well, here's the only thing that bothers me right now is the moment I warmed up to the fact that Brock Purdy is a really good NFL quarterback. Not just, hey, he did well for a 7th-round pick, or, hey, he's just Kyle Shanahan's quarterback, and whoever that is going to be good. The moment I warmed up to that, he started playing not as good in this 3-game losing streak. So now I know less about what to think, but I do know this. He's the best option for the 49ers. No doubt. Not Sam Darnold. He is still the best option. He's got to get better. The whole 49ers team has to get better.
It is time for NFL Overreaction.
Guys, to get us going, we're going to switch it up just a little bit for this first question. Usually I say a statement, you tell me if it's an overreaction or if it's just reality. But with the trade deadline passing, I just want to pose the question, which team lost the trade deadline?
Well, let's start with the Giants. The report is they didn't turn the trade in time with the Niners to trade Adoree Jackson. I get Adoree's not a top upper echelon corner or defensive back, but the way Shanahan could use him in different ways, we saw it here in Tennessee, special teams, sometimes on offense, whatever, plus a speed element, that made sense on the back end for a team that's looking to add a depth. I I don't know how you don't get that in at the deadline. Deadline's a deadline. That's why we see all the movement the hour prior. How do the Giants don't turn it in? I don't know, Chad.
Yeah, the Commanders lost. I mean, if you're a Commanders fan, you now know you suck.
But they
may
knew
have
that
thought
anyway,
about it
didn't they?
before. I don't know. Fans
They now
can
have
be,
9 picks next year.
Fans can put their head in the sand and not think they do, but this is full admission that it is a complete wiping the slate clean, which may be a win for you also, but I think it's the Commanders.
Okay.
The others would be that the teams that, I mean, let's think about the Broncos. How much have we heard about Jerry Jeudy being traded?
Last couple of years.
Yes.
Steve Smith would love for that.
He
to
remains a Denver Bronco. Like, that talk remains there, and they're coming off a win against Kansas City, whatever. But just the turbulence continues up and down on what you expect versus what happens versus what's to come. Some teams that could use draft picks that have traded them away didn't make moves to help bolster the offseason to get younger.
Okay, guys, but now going into how we normally do things for NFL overreaction, Mike McDaniel will win the NFL Coach of the Year.
No. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Robert Saleh is going to be your Coach of the Year. They're 4-3. They were written off when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. They're going to remain relevant against all odds the rest of the year. I think Robert Saleh of the Jets is your Coach of the Year.
I think it ends up being Dan Campbell. I think Miami is going to have a couple of losses mixed in to where they probably should be as talented as they are, to where they're not going to be number 1 or number 2 seed. I think Detroit could be out of the NFC. So I think that bolsters Campbell's resume. Plus, unlike the Lions, the Dolphins didn't have, that they're going to, really grab the brass ring this offseason. The talk of the league were the Detroit Lions, and they've lived up to expectation. Hasn't always been great. They win. Ugly win is a win, but, last night's game was nothing to boast about, but Jahmyr Gibbs got going, and look, they need him to because they're 6-2, and they are among the top teams in the league right now. Miami is too, but I think Miami's schedule is a bit more daunting than what I look at with Detroit, and I think Campbell racks up the wins there.
Yeah, speaking of Detroit, they got the big win last night over the Raiders, and Devontae Adams, as we've seen, was not moved today.
Hey,
so
real quick, I'm just thinking this. The other thing that could help McDaniel, guys, is the Hard Knocks show. Sorry, I wanted to add that
that's a good point. Yep.
Robert Saleh already locked it up with his Hard Knocks appearance.
Coach of the Year in New York is Aaron Rodgers.
It's Brian Dable.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Okay, Devontae Adams. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
no, you're good, guys. This is Devontae Adams' last season in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. There's the reports coming out today that he had discussions with Vegas brass about what it would look like for him to move on. He's got the helmet slam last night, 1 catch for 11 yards. Josh McDaniels and the Raiders informed me, hey, we're not going to move on from you. I think he's moving on from the Raiders, and he's going to do everything in his power to move on. I think this is his last year in Vegas.
I can buy that if he's going to restructure and get an upfront payday to enable the trade, but he's got the payday with the Raiders right now. I mean, what you would want is to have the power in your favor to make some decisions on why you're not getting the football. Why he's not, I have no idea. Why they're not connecting. But there's a quarterback to receiver problem there, and the diva comes out. Normally, if the receiver wants out, he's out. But he wasn't out today. They didn't trade him.
Yep. Sticking in the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs will not be the 1 seed in the AFC. If the playoffs were to end today, they would be. Or the playoffs were to start today.
I think they're going to be the number 1 seed. So the overreaction is that they're not going to be.
Yeah.
I think when everything plays out, the Chiefs, bad day, Patrick Mahomes with the flu. His flu game wasn't like Jordan's flu game in Salt Lake City when he went to snowy Denver. I think they're going to be the number 1 seed, though, at the end of the season.
So I think it could be Jacksonville. I think the Jags can be the number 1 seed in the AFC. They can win multiple ways. Trevor Lawrence has ETN, one of the top backs in the league. I can't say that for Patrick Mahomes. They can't just lean on the run game if their average wide receivers are covered up, average at best, other than Kelsey. And meanwhile, I mean, What are we saying about Kansas City if they go to Germany and lose this week to Miami in the head-to-head matchup? I know what we're saying about Jacksonville's schedule. They're playing in the AFC South. While the Chiefs have the AFC West, they also have the number one seed type schedule that they've been able to win. But this is just a different makeup that I think presents different problems, even though they've got Reed and Mahomes and Kelsey and a talented defense that has started better early in the season than what we've been used to. Normally they come along. I don't see this offense coming along to the great extent of what we've been known to expect from KC. They're not putting up 28 to 33 points a game. And I think ultimately there's some other teams that certainly can, including Miami this weekend. Watch out for Jacksonville, Davey.
All right, guys, finally, real quickly. Josh Dobbs will get the Vikings to the playoffs.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say no. They're going to be drafting in the 20s, and they'll be the 8th seed. Just on the outside looking into the postseason. Coming up, speaking of postseason, college football playoff, the first rankings unveiled tonight. Tim Brando joins us. He weighs in on what to expect.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number one overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only one or two. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Smoky Moonshine
Just like that, the final hour is here on this Tuesday edition. Glad you're with us. Hot Mike with Head to Withrow across the OutKick Network. Chad, busy day. Plenty of discussion across college football. About to get into that. We got the NFL trade deadline that came and went. Chase Young is now with the San Francisco 49ers. Montez Sweat to Chicago. Joshua Dobbs is the quarterback now in Minnesota. We had all the headlines throughout the show. And we started today's show with more discussion about Connor Stalions, Michigan sign stealing, and the photos and screenshots that had surfaced from the FS1 broadcast on September the 1st, the season opener, where Central Michigan on the road at Michigan State, and someone appears to look very similar to Connor Stalions, wearing sunglasses at night, decked out in CMU gear.
Let's also say it is a complete failure of Central Michigan if they don't identify who this person is immediately and set the record straight and say it's not him.
They've admitted they're investigating.
They're just issuing these statements about investigating it. It's him. If it wasn't him and Central Michigan didn't just say, hey, this is such and such who's on our strength staff, what a crime by Central Michigan University. It's him.
Amy Follen, the AD.
Him.
We became aware of these photos late yesterday. We're in the process of determining the facts surrounding them. This was in East Lansing. And we got Nebraska and Michigan State upcoming this weekend. And Tim Brando joins us. He's on the call for this game. Tim, first of all, great to see you. We've got the college football playoff rankings, the first one's unveiled tonight. A lot to get to, but how about the story that just continues to mount on Michigan sign stealing and Connor Stalions now, for the first time, apparently on a sideline at the season opener, with Michigan playing the following day?
Oh, by the way, didn't you guys hear I had a stalker, and that was a game Spencer and I had the first week of the season.
Oh.
Central Michigan and Michigan State. And, I had reported it to a number of authorities in and around the East Lansing area. Someone that obviously took issue with some of my tweets and or X's, whatever you call them now. No, I'm I'm making light of it, but yeah, it was our game. It wouldn't be the first time that a game that yours truly broadcasted that came up in a court of law as something was being adjudicated later on, which I suspect this one will. At some point in time, it may go that far. But look, I have long since made my views on this public, and until such time as someone besides the NCAA is in the middle of investigating this, all right, then it's a non-story.
Yeah,
it's a non-story from a football standpoint, because the NCAA, from my perspective, has zero credibility. And since 1984, when it lost its financial monopoly over college football, has gone out of its way to do everything it can to undermine what college football is all about. And frankly, I think the bigger issue here is it's up to the commissioners of the conferences. And my friend Tony Petitti, who's now in charge of the Big Ten, understands this, as does everyone else, including his counterpart over at the SEC, the other behemoth of college football, Greg Sankey. Until they understand that they are going to have to take control of things and govern and really preside over their sport, then nothing's ever going to get done. We had this situation crop up when Mike Slive was in charge of the SEC. Now, we were not talking about a competitive advantage, but we were talking about the selling of a player, okay, by the father of Cam Newton. And we knew for really a month and a half that Auburn was culpable. But guess what? The NCAA, with the help of Mike Slive, the then commissioner of the SEC, was going to not be a part of this, because it was the bottom line is that investigation would have probably been ongoing as we speak today. Okay, there's just no if ever there were proof that college football is a rudderless ship in terms of governance, this is it. Now, I'm not letting Michigan off the hook. I think that there's no question that as the story continues to unfold and the evidence continues to be uncovered, we're going to see that Jim Harbaugh may be in a world of hurt down the road. He's not now. He's not. Unless and until the Big Ten decides on their own, all right, to make this a game breaker. for the Michigan Wolverines program. And I don't suspect that they will, because knowing Tony Petitti as I do, due diligence must take place here. And that due diligence is going to last well through this season. And the NCAA's due diligence, last I checked when the FBI was involved, took over 6 years. And what really wound up happening to Kansas basketball or Auburn basketball or LSU basketball or any of those schools that were involved? So, I again, it's a huge story, but the fact that we're having to spend time on it right now pisses me off. Okay? Pisses me off. And this is why the NCAA has no business being involved with college football. Run your men's NCAA tournament, which funds all of those non-revenue producing sports, and stay the hell away from college football. Now, it's up to the leaders of college football, those college commissioners of all 10, or maybe as of the Pac-12's extinction, 9 conferences, to take this up, find a czar, find someone that can adjudicate matters both on and off the field properly, so that college football can flourish as it has been flourishing for many years. Instead, in the middle of the season, as we head for November, we have the games to remember, we're having to deal with this dribble. If they want to hire Dan Wetzel, Pat Forty, Ross Dellinger, go get them. Go and get them right now, because they're a hell of a lot better than your infractions committee and your enforcement committee. They uncover everything. Why do you suppose that's true, fellas? I'll tell you. It's true because the NCAA chooses not to be transparent. They choose to back channel this through leaks to the media that they've done for generations. It sucks out loud, and it needs to stop quickly. And the men in suits, the men that are in those smoke-filled rooms, the CFP can get involved. They can get involved with the commissioners, because that is the infrastructure of college football. That's how this has to be handled, because the NCAA, number one, in my mind, doesn't have jurisdiction any longer. Number two, doesn't care to do anything but hurt the college game, because they don't make any money off of it, and they haven't since 1984. And number three, they don't have the manpower to enforce anything anyway. And why are we in the situation that we're in with the NIL, with the transfer portal? Because why? The Supreme Court voted 9-0 that what they were doing was against German antitrust laws. The bottom line is the NCAA has no business being involved in college football any longer. So the people that are smart enough to know this need to take the necessary steps so we can get on with this. And stories like this, and 11 years ago, 13 years ago now, the Cam Newton story was back in 2010, almost 13 years ago. These stories need to go away, because it's damaging a great sport that a lazy media doesn't want to cover on the field anyway.
Well, Tim, I'm totally with you on the NCAA and their lack of authority or power here, and where they failed in the
credibility.
past.
Or credibility.
Well, here's the thing. This is the opportunity for a commissioner or member institutions of a conference to take over. Because if they
How long have I been asking for a czar?
I'm
How
with
long?
you, but here's where I'll counter what you're saying, because this is what I get tired of. Also, the NCAA looks to Congress to solve their problems, because they can't, right? And then conference commissioners look to the NCAA to solve their problems, and schools look to the conference commissioner to solve their problems. Michigan State took 24 hours to decide whether or not they wanted to play the football game against Michigan. They had this information that's been confirmed today about Connor Stallions in a Central Michigan coach's gear, illegally scouting their team and all this going on. If they felt unsafe, or they felt like there was a competitive disadvantage, they could have told the Big Ten office, you know what, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
We're going to be the one to draw a line in the sand and say, we're not playing it. If you want to tell us we're going to forfeit, it's going to force your hand to do something. At some point, someone's got to step up and be the whistleblower, or be the one to say, we're not playing Michigan, or they just go on and win a national title. And no one says anything, right?
Well, yeah. Well, let's go back in time now. You're talking about the Central Michigan game that Spencer and I had on FS1. They were already a month and a half, maybe 2 months into an investigation that they already knew about with their football coach, Mel Tucker, and chose not to deal with it and not to say anything about it until said date, until what happened? A leak. then they had to deal with it. So that's why Michigan State was not necessarily in a position to be possibly thinking about bailing out of the Michigan game. The issue here is this, fellas.
But no
okay?
competitive
The
disadvantage.
Commissioners, no. Absolutely.
For what
But
Mel
the
Tucker was
commissioners-
doing.
No, I understand that, but I'm just telling you that they're not being the leadership at Michigan State's not being transparent either. Okay, they weren't with anybody when it came to their head football coach and the circumstances he faced. All right, the leaders of these universities are the presidents, and the commissioners serve at the pleasure of them. So the commissioners are dealing, all right, all of them, whether it's Sankey in the SEC, Petitti in the Big Ten, Mike Oresco, my friend over at the American Conference, the Big 12 with Brett Yormark, they serve at the pleasure. See, it's the construct of college football and the way it's governed. So many fans don't know, don't care. They just hear NCAA and they think it's all under that umbrella. It's not, and it hasn't been for a long time. But we have this triangle of leadership, all that's scared of the other arm of leadership. And those presidents, okay, it's those presidents of those schools that give what little power the NCAA still has. So those presidents want all that money the commissioners are able to negotiate in television for them, but they want to play that highbrow approach that we are part of the NCAA. I got news for you. The NCAA is a corrupt body. How much longer do the presidents of these universities want to be connected to a body as corrupt as the NCAA? All they've ever done, all right, is legislate against human dignity and then kill every opportunity that young men had until such time as the Supreme Court voted 9-0. Okay? You couldn't get the Supreme Court to be in unison on anything other than the fact that the NCAA was operating outside their auspices. Okay? So let's come to an agreement here. If you're going to play the college game, if you're going to have college football, you have to let the people that understand the sport govern it and adjudicate it, because you have given that up from the moment that you said we are going to inherit name, image, and likeness. We are going to inherit the transfer portal and move forward, because the NCAA said, we don't want to deal with this. It's outside our purview. Well, act like it. Don't allow the NCAA to screw up your college football season as it is, as we speak right now.
Other than Michigan, the only seat at the table for the College Football Playoff Committee this year is at Rutgers from the Big Ten. What do you expect tonight with the first rankings? Because this does, while we have a long way to go, this does set the table for where is Michigan. If they drop one, can they win one to get back in? It does kind of set up the hierarchy of how you make your way to 4 if you're 1 or 2 and you lose one along the way.
Gives us a pecking order tonight to start with.
Well, you've seen my top 10 this week. I've had Michigan number 1 for a while. I think what is the point differential? 38 per game. They dominated everyone they played.
Yes.
Listen, the bottom line is, if you're going to look at resume, you're going to put Ohio State number 1. If you're going to look at who's performed at the highest level and should be number 1 based on the performance, it's going to be Michigan, regardless of the schedule they've played or lack thereof. Same really true here of Georgia, who I think is permanently in it 2. I think Florida State is a lock at 3. But in my poll, if I were part of the committee, and I'm not, obviously, but I think what the committee will do is they'll err on the side of strength of schedule and put Ohio State in the 1 hole simply because of who they played, and they'll let Michigan fall down to 4, keeping them in, but also because of the quote-unquote the way it looks, which I think does matter to many on the CFP. They don't want to reward a team coached by Jim Harbaugh with these kinds of allegations being number 1 in the first college football poll, so they'll flip it. And in my view, the majority of them will vote for Ohio State to be 1, Georgia 2, Florida State 3, and Michigan 4. I believe it would be just the opposite in my top 10, but that's the way I see it. And what you do tonight really doesn't matter. It's what happens as we get closer to that last one, the first weekend in December. And at that point, they can do things based on strength of schedule and the way things look and how it's going to be landing with the public. they'll do all of that now. But in the end, they're going to go with the 4 teams that provide the biggest brands and the biggest television ratings to their college football brand invitational, which is what it is, has been, and will be until we go to 12 next year.
Well, Tim, this weekend you get to talk college football on the field, and you've got a team that is a share atop the Big Ten West right now with a chance at winning the division with Matt Rule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers against Michigan State. Hey, always a pleasure to get you on the show. Really appreciate it. As we start to learn more, I'm sure we will talk more on-field football like we normally do with you. Thanks so much, Tim.
Well, I look forward to that. Thanks a lot, fellas.
Yep. My guess is at the game he'll see a lot of sunglasses and goatees in the stands.
Yeah, the post-Halloween costume will be just that for sure.
Yes.
He's right about the NCAA. I don't want the NCAA to adjudicate this.
Well, the one thing,
I think if people are truly angry, they need to step up and say something or do something.
But even if the NCAA did, there's an appeals process that is lengthy. In the Big Ten, if they were to do something, it would go before their own board of infractions. They would approve it. They couldn't add to whatever Tony Petitti wanted to do. They could reduce it. But here's the thing. Based on what I've been reading, there's no appeals process for Michigan. If the Big Ten wanted to do something and it was approved by the rest of the conference, that's the intriguing part. That, he's right. The committee is going to do based on what we've seen on the field. And Michigan has been dominant.
They've been great.
Yeah, they have. More headlines straight ahead. We'll talk trade deadline in college football.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump now at least have to see senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth at Peabody location, Lehigh Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine.
How about Timmy B getting fired up?
Well, The Athletic has obtained more photos of the goateed sunglasses person.
Can we just say that it's him?
Well, no, so we can't because no one else is willing to say it. Like, I want to be able to say it's him, but what I asked when I came in the studio today, are we sure this is him? Because no one's willing to say it. Like, Central Michigan's the only one that can look into this?
I want you to
Are they going to call
But
Michigan and ask?
I do want you to hear me out when I say this.
Oh, it's him.
If it's not Connor Stallions,
Oh, I know.
Central Michigan University is dead to me forever for not coming right out and saying, oh, that's Tim. That's our guy. That's our assistant strength coach. Or that's our quarterback coach's brother. Or whatever it may be.
Oh, I mean.
The fact that you release a statement.
We know, but we don't know.
And say it's under investigation, to me, is confirmation it is Connor Stallions. Because you don't know who it is, but you're pretty sure you know who it is, and that's Connor Stallions. If this is someone that someone on that staff, anyone knows, and it's not Connor Stallions, and they said, we're putting it under investigation, Central Michigan University, the Chippewas, dead to me forever. It's him.
Also, keep in mind that one of Michigan's Big Ten opponents told The Athletic that they have in-stadium surveillance footage that shows someone filming their team sideline from one of the seats purchased by Stallions. So you've got that done by smartphone. This is the first time we've seen alleged video evidence of him on the FS1 broadcast with Timmy B and Tillman on the call of allegedly it's Stallions on the sideline, standing next to the director of recruiting for Central Michigan, as well as the offensive line coach, Chad, who's signaling in plays, I believe. Others are saying like he's covering his face as plays are being made towards his direction on his sideline close to him. I mean, you're right. The fact that we're looking into this, we're investigating this, no further comment at this time. Okay. It's someone that wasn't a part of the staff that's decked out in Central Michigan gear wearing Adidas pants and sunglasses and a hat. And Michigan plays the next day. This is on September 1st. Michigan opens on the 2nd.
Look, Tim's fired up about this. He hates the NCAA. I get it. I've got issues with them as well. Very easy to not like what the NCAA has done. He's right about virtually every point he made about the NCAA. I will say this, though. The Big Ten, member institutions in the Big Ten, schools, everyone is complicit in this problem I have with this process. They all want to pass the buck on to someone else. When the NCAA gets an unfavorable ruling in court, they don't want to do anything anymore. They want Congress and Senator Tommy Tuberville to figure out their problems for them. When all of the Big Ten, reportedly, based on people who talk to coaches, they're all pissed off. They're up in arms. They're angry. Michigan cheated. They've done this. It's been systematic. It's wrong. It created a disadvantage. They want to tell that to media members, but hey, that's not my job to talk about it. I'm not going to say that publicly. Pass it on to the university president or the AD. University president, AD, angry. What do? Pass it on to Tony Petitti and the Big Ten office. And meanwhile, Tony Petitti's sitting there thinking, I'm not doing anything to derail a possible national champion from my conference until what? Until I get word from the NCAA. ongoing investigation, cannot comment. Those are the 4 words you will hear repeatedly, and it's BS. If you have information, and you know who's got information? A third-party law firm. Not one school, not the NCAA. A third-party law firm turned all this over. They have it. They've given it to the other schools in the Big Ten. They've seen it. If they've got Michigan, they know it. They've got it. Say it. I don't care if Tony Petitti's telling the conference not to speak or someone else. If you truly are this angry about it, someone on a podium somewhere say, Michigan has gone above and beyond anything that's ethical in the sport. They have created a competitive disadvantage. They've had their head in the sand about it. They're almost taunting us with it. They're flaunting what they've done. They've got a staffer in Central Michigan gear on a sideline against a rival, helping them out and scouting us. Just say it. I'm tired of everyone passing the buck on this. What's going to happen, though, Hutton, and we all know it, is nothing.
Well, but
they're going to be allowed to continue playing this year, and the season will play itself out.
Yeah, and I think a part of it, too, is for all the coaches. I mean, we're lumping everyone together. I think a lot of them are passing the buck because, number one, they can, and number two, they don't want the attention. Because while they may not be doing the exact same thing, they may not have their own version of Connor Stallions, there's probably someone somewhere that has dirt on them doing something else. Not necessarily scouting, but something else that would violate a rule that could turn into something more than what it is. I mean, it all goes back to CYA and off the record versus putting your name behind it. And right now, Shiano's the one guy who said something at halftime hinting about it. You know, there have been others that have been like, yeah, we've known this is going on for a while. Matt Rule commented on it. But Saban's asked about it on McAfee last week, and he's like, I really don't know much detail there. I mean, I don't know how you ignore it.
His response is put something in the headset, you know, or in the helmet, a communication device.
Yeah. So could the Big Ten step in?
Well, look, maybe no one's really angry, and they're acting angry about it. I'm just saying, if you are truly angry, then you need to be the one to do something about it. At some level, could be an opposing coach, could be an AD or school president, could be Tony Petitti in the Big Ten office. It's not going to be the NCAA.
No, it can't be right now.
Until everything plays out and everything happens.
But it can be the Big Ten right now.
Yes.
They have a sportsmanship policy they could point to if they wanted to. And
this is to me, Hutton, an opportunity to lead.
But I mentioned this last week.
If you want
Tony
to be
Petitti
a leader
can
in this,
step up and be the guy.
If you want to be a leader,
I questioned this last week on this.
You've got the goods on them, which we don't know that they do. We've got all this photo evidence and all these texts and everything else, but we don't know what the full level of goods are on Michigan.
Those behind the scenes know more than the public knows, the media knows right now.
Tony Petitti should know, is the point about this, right?
Sure.
He knows all the goods on Michigan. If he knows and they can't refute any of it, then he should act. I've been consistent with this, and I'll say it again. It is one thing to gain a competitive advantage for yourself. If what we're seeing with Connor Stallions in Central Michigan gear against Michigan State, and they have in some way puppeteered other programs or sent sensitive information or illegally scouted material to other teams in an effort to affect all of college football or to negatively affect their rivals, that's one of the worst scandals I've ever seen in college football.
Well, but think about it from this angle.
It's one of the worst I've ever seen.
Central Michigan is investigating whether or not it was Connor Stallions on the side. How about the Big Ten look into it? Because it's impacting one of your member schools. And though the NCAA is the lead investigating body, hint, it's the media for them, the Big Ten has direct involvement if they want to because it's impacting the rest of the member institutions and programs. And so the league notified all members of the Big Ten whenever it was told through the NCAA that an investigation had been started. And they notified all the programs that were going to be scheduled to face Michigan. Michigan State, of course, the first. Chad, there's also, since then, so much additional information that if they wanted to do their own conference investigation, they would notify Michigan. If that happens, penalties are coming because the way the structure if discipline rises beyond the standard level for violations of the sportsmanship policy, which states that actions are so offensive to the integrity of the competition that those are punishable. Tony Petitti has the exclusive authority to determine that. He then will propose sanctions, penalty, discipline, whatever. That would go before an executive committee that is a room filled with representatives from the Big Ten schools. The committee then approves that discipline. They can't add to it, but they can reduce it. Once that's determined, there is no appeals process. So that is the expedited discipline path if you're looking for what could be fair and balanced based on a national championship caliber program, instead of what the NCAA will do, which is just tell them to remove a banner and take it out of the media guide, 5 years from now. It still happened. Louisville still has, they don't have their banner in the KFC Yum Center or whatever it is now.
Yeah, the Yum Center.
But they've got, we all witnessed what happened. Chad, this is, I mentioned this last week, this is a chance for Petitti to step up and lead. However, he leads on behalf of the member institutions.
Yeah, if this is truly unique, then this is truly outside the bounds.
Right.
Then this is truly a situation that is above and beyond anything any of these programs the Big Ten has done. It will take 13 versus 1. All 13 programs uniting, telling Tony Petitti, we have seen the information, the evidence. We know that you have them dead to rights. And we have agreed as 13 member institutions that you should lay the hammer down on Michigan, and we have your back. If they don't do that, that tells me a couple things. One, someone else is doing the exact same thing, which I've said from the beginning is the one defense of Michigan, if they can prove others are doing the exact same thing. Or two, they have no spine. They have no spine, and they're waiting on the NCAA to do something, which, Hutton, we know won't happen for 3 years.
But no spine. We already know that, because how many of the Big Ten schools, we're focused on the conference here because of the disciplinary actions that could happen but won't. How many of those institutions have had their own cover-ups? Not with filming something on a cell phone at a game for off-site scouting, but more serious allegations and sanctions and discipline and criminal activity, for that matter. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're going to internally try to slow play those issues, are you really going to press the pedal on Connor Stalions recording something from a seat in a stadium that he purchased with a cell phone? Like, that to me also speaks to where we are with the leadership process. Tony Petitti can only do what the member institutions ultimately want him to get done. He can lead, but he has to have the votes necessary to back up whatever he wants to do. But Chad, I mean, the other part of this too is if I'm in the room and I'm just discussing it and I'm upset about it, you have some games here to allow it to play out where you could still try to get the right thing done at the end. During the COVID season, what did they do for Ohio State? They tried to make sure they got in. So do you let the schedule play out and see what happens before you – and by the way, who knows how much more information we have by then?
I think the silence will be deafening. Either they all agree this is way above and beyond as a conference, and they allow Tony Petitti to use his executive authority to punish them in a big way, or they don't, and that tells me one of two things. One, others are up to the same thing, and they don't want to admit it. They don't want to point the finger at Michigan because they know they've done the same. Or two, they're weak, and they just want to pass the buck on to someone else, and they don't want to get involved in it. I think the latter is probably what's going to happen, and Michigan's going to continue rolling right along. And again, it looks bad. We all agree that right now it looks really bad for Michigan and what's been going on. But if no one else comes out and says, this is absolutely not happening in college football, and this is totally unique to Michigan, and this takes it to another level, if no one's willing to say that, then we can all just continue to speculate and infer on what's happening around the sport and not know one way or the other.
What's interesting, too, is Michigan has had more comment on the record than a lot of the member institutions.
Yeah,
the record.
It is
because
on.
They've commented, they've suspended Connor Stallions immediately,
Yep.
and according to reports, they removed an offer from across the table to Harbaugh. I mean, they're doing more that's been reported than what we're hearing from the other institutions.
It's a great opportunity for Tony Petitti and the Big Ten to show they can lead. Tim Brando's right.
Yeah.
The NCAA is not who's going to lead college football at the major level moving forward. Who will lead? It's going to be the commissioners and/or commissioner. If Tony Petitti has the evidence that levels Michigan and he acts, he is in the front row seat to be the leader, not Greg Sankey. Greg Sankey would never do that, ever. Would Greg Sankey do that to Alabama? If this was all the same story and he had all the evidence and Alabama and Nick Saban were doing it, would he hammer them and cost them a chance at a national championship? Absolutely not. If Tony Petitti shows he has that level of decision-making ability and power and authority, Tony Petitti is the front runner to lead college football moving forward. Again, I don't know what all he has. But if he has all that evidence and information and he can get consensus with the other 13 programs and do it, he's the leader in the clubhouse. He is your commissioner of college football moving forward. If not, more confusion, more weak spines across the sport. That's all it is.
Yeah, not what he has, but what he wants to find out, right? That's all a part of this, too. But ultimately, Michigan's going to be one of the top teams in the playoff. We'll preview that next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys
on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of the Southern Legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Brando sent in a message saying, man, he was fired up over the Connor Stallions discussion with Michigan. And he said, hey, we absolutely need to discuss it, but it covers up what is a great college football weekend on tap coming up. He's right.
Yeah.
He's right.
Well, yes, it does cover up the talk about some of these games. We'll get into it in my top 10 on Friday for sure. People are still going to watch the games. You know what people aren't going to watch? Purdue, Michigan. Even though we're talking about Michigan all week.
Right. But also.
Because that's going to be a blowout.
But also, like, we're discussing a lot about this and how much does it really factor into what we're going to see Michigan do on the field. Right? Like, and what they're allowed to do on the field. With the playoff committee.
I'll
tonight
just keep going back to I don't fully know exactly how much of an advantage they got. We know it's something of an advantage. They wouldn't have kept doing it. But
it's more about the
what we
depths
gotta
that they
learn.
went to, not the advantage or disadvantage, but how they went about doing it.
I think it's about all of it. Like, I need to know how this affected them. We know it helped them, but how much? We need people to weigh in and speak honestly on it that are in the know, that would know about it.
But it's more than just stealing signs. It's about the depths at which they're brazen about doing so, meaning you've got Connor Stallions allegedly on the Central Michigan sideline in CMU gear for the season opener at Michigan State wearing a sideline pass.
I can't believe they were this
You know what I mean, though? Like, that. If we're just getting that, where are we 2 weeks from now with what we will see?
Yeah, and I'm still having a hard time believing Michigan was this dumb.
I know.
And this brazen about it, but clearly they were.
And he's allegedly paying fans to go to games.
Here's what we don't know right now is, to me, the ultimate fallback for Michigan has always been, this is a college football issue, not a Michigan issue. And others will be exposed. There are other programs who've done the exact same thing. There are other programs that have a staffer assigned to do this, that's been buying tickets at games, it's been on sidelines, all of it. If that's the case, Michigan would want that exposed.
Yes.
Sooner rather than later. I don't know that it's the case. Most of the people we talk to or that we've heard from would say, I've not heard of this. I've heard of certain things about trying to get signs, obviously, but not to this extent. Well,
how about?
I don't know that we'll ever fully know.
This quote that's circulating from Jack Harbaugh from 2016, a longtime, a fantastic coach and a lineage of course, his sons, John and Jim. Jack Harbaugh and Dan Lebitard in September 27th, 2016, asked if John or Jim cheated. Quote, I never looked at it as cheating. It's creative ways for winning. That's a lot of, to me, that's the sentiment of a lot of what former coaches are saying about this. Chad, you and I have heard from some. They're like, I've seen worse, or we've certainly seen this or that. And the penalty and infraction for what we saw in the NFL, way different than the way they're handling it right now in Ann Arbor, for instance. But it goes to show, like, the safe harbor report from Pelissero and Rappaport on Sunday morning. Like, just don't assume that Harbaugh will just, hop, skip, and a jump away from being a head coach in the NFL next year if this reaches a level to where the NFL deems him it doesn't meet the standard for entry into the league as a coach. Like that would be the rule that the bylaw that they would point to. This could get to a much different level than where we are now. And as far as like the hype around it, like what feels probably like a 8.5 is probably at a 5, because what is an 8.5 we're about to see in 4 weeks. You know what I mean?
Scott on Twitter X says, this is like getting in trouble for counting cards in blackjack. If you can sign steal, great. You shouldn't be punished for it. I don't care how elaborate it is. You get thrown out of the casino.
Oh, worse.
If you're doing that, okay? So this is not like counting cards in blackjack. B, it's a clear violation of a very, very clear rule. Let's not lose sight of this fact, okay? Watching a TV copy of a game, watching an all-22, and deciphering signs or having someone on staff assigned to do that is not technically illegal, okay? Whether it's frowned upon or not, I don't think it's even frowned upon. I think it's just what happens. People are trying to do that. It's a reason that programs have 5 guys in different colored shirts sending in signals, or have big black curtains going up over the guys from behind as they do it, because they know people are trying to get their signals. That is a part of the game. Scott and everyone else and Michigan fans who argue this is not, there's no gray here. It's black and white. You cannot scout off-site. You can't. It's against the rules. Since 1994, it is very, very clear. I watched Dan Mullen talk about this on ESPN over the weekend, good friend of the show. He said, you can't scout off-site. There's no gray area here. They are knowingly breaking the rules when they do this. So put that out of your mind. If you want to come back and tell me Michigan's not the only one doing this, fine. I'll hear your argument out. Maybe 75% of the big schools are doing it. I don't know. I know what I've heard. I know what the rule is. The rule is you cannot scout off-site. If you have proof, other programs do the exact same thing, bring it to us. Let us know. But there's no gray here. It's clear violation of a clear-cut rule. Let's get that in all of our heads before we move forward.
Chad, Clemson right now, there are 4 games remaining at 4-4. They will have a week off. No, excuse me. They've got Notre Dame this week. They host Notre Dame. Then they will play home against Georgia Tech. They will face off at home against UNC, and then they visit South Carolina. Dabo's back-to-back weeks now of not getting into it, but jumping in and getting passionate in a response to fans that are calling into the head coach's show. Last night was more warranted than the previous. But where do you think Dabo is on November 25th as they leave Columbia, South Carolina?
Well, Dabo seems to be almost daring his administration to fire him. And that he would go somewhere else and win immediately. And I don't necessarily disagree. So last night, Tyler in Spartanburg, I think it's Tyler was his name. Love to play the audio. We can't. Tyler in Spartanburg goes on his coach's show, Dabo Sweeney's, and says something like, hey, you make 11. I wish I could do a Tyler impression, Hutton. I don't have a good South Carolina accent, or I would, since we can't play it. He says, hey, Coach, you make $11.5 million over there, and I just think, quoting Proverbs, you're a man of faith, Coach, and quoting Proverbs, I know that pride comes before the fall, and ever since 2018, that it's been a lot of pride, and the program's changed, and you seem to be fat and happy with it, and I don't know why we're paying you $11.5 million for you to go 4-4 on the season, Coach. I'll hang up and listen. And Dabo comes on and goes on an impassioned 5-minute rant saying a lot of things that are very true and I completely agree with. Appreciation and expectation, right? This was a program that appreciated the wins and respected the wins and enjoyed them. And now it's become a level of expectation where no one appreciates anything anymore at Clemson. He says, we've had 11 straight years. We won 10-plus games.
Amazing.
He says a year ago we lost to Tennessee in a bowl game. They won 10-plus game for the first time in like 20 years. He said, they'd be thrilled with that type of record, right, that we had at Clemson in the last few years. There are 3 programs in the last 20 years to win 2+ national championships. It's Alabama, Georgia, and us. He says, you think Frank Howard ever had a bad season? You think Danny Ford had a bad season, who won a national title also at Clemson? We've all had bad seasons. Now, I think if I had to media coach Dabo Swinney, he destroyed this guy, by the way. He also said, I'm not going to.
And again today in the press room.
I'm not going to be spoken to like I'm a 12-year-old from you. But he said, Tyler, I'm sure you've never made a mistake professionally. Now, Dabo also in the middle of this rant says, it's in a good season. It's a bad season that we're having right now. I get it. We get one bad season here, and then we'll try to correct it. I'm going to do everything I can to correct this moving forward. But when you go to the level of, if they want to let me go, my president, my AD, the board of trust, fine, I'll go somewhere else and win. I don't know that I would go that far if I'm Dabo. You're making $11.5 million. It is a disappointing season. I get the level of frustration from some dude who sounds like he's 23 years old calling into your show, talking to you like you're not a grown man. I understand it. I completely empathize with that emotional response. And I think it wasn't overly emotional or angry. He laid out a lot of good points about his career and his tenure at Clemson. But Hutton, I don't think I would have gone as far as to say, go ahead and cut me loose and see what happens when I go somewhere else.
Then he said he'd go ahead and apply for the job. But his news conference today, he didn't back away. He's like, he referred to his new friend as the idiot caller. He's like, this is why coaches don't take calls right here. You know, if you want to learn what Kathleen wants or what her favorite ice cream is, you can listen to a different coach's show.
Yep.
And he goes, he's getting the vocal minority of the fan base that's upset with 4 losses and missing out on the college football playoff for the last 3 years. And then here's the quote. I had some idiot go Old Testament on me, and he got an Old Testament response. Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo. Now, he goes on to say that, as I said last night to my new friend, I've been a part of failure many times. I ain't never failed on anything I've set out to do in my life. I will fight for this program, and hopefully we can get back to some appreciation around here. But here's the thing. He's got to embrace the ever-changing landscape of college football. And ultimately, it's not going to be about Tyler and Spartanburg. It's going to be about the 5-star in, L.A. or wherever, Tallahassee, where you're battling one program over the other and you're winning out. Are they going to continue to do that? Chad,
so Hutton, this was the equivalent. Like, this is we talk about old man strength.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
call in.
We've all tussled with our dad before or our uncle, and we might be in the height of what we think is our athleticism in high school or college or whatever, and there's something about our old man or our uncle, we play one-on-one basketball, whatever, that they look fat and out of shape, and they still just manhandle you. It's called old man strength. It's called dad strength. What Dabo did in this situation is basically take Tyler and Spartanburg, put him over his knee, and give him a good old solid spanking on the rear end in front of everyone to hear. I will not be spoken to like I'm a 12-year-old. I don't know what you've done in your life, but I'm 50 whatever years old. I've done this, this, and this. It was a tour de force from Dabo. Now, having heard the audio of the caller, I didn't think he was as belligerent as I would have expected.
No.
Based on reading the transcript of what was said, he wasn't as out of line as I thought. But I thought Dabo handled it well. Now, the big question is, as you alluded to,
and he says criticism is warranted.
Yeah. Can he be the guy to resurrect what is let's call it what it is. It's a nosedive that Clemson's gone through in the last year and a half. They are nosediving right now in college football.
Criticism is warranted. If it's constructive criticism, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Can you embrace it? Chad, college football playoff, the first rankings announced in a couple of hours. I've got Georgia number 1. Well, I know the consensus is it's going to be Ohio State. I've got Georgia number 1 and Michigan number 2 based on what we've seen through the dominance. Georgia's number 1 in the preseason. I think they're there as the 2-time national champs. Ohio State's in at number 3 for me, followed by Florida State, securely at 4 with the Pac-12 on the outside looking in. How do you see it?
Hutton, I've got a little bit of a different setup than you do. I am going Georgia number 1 as well. I think Ohio State has the two best wins
Yes.
All right, I think Washington has the one best win over Oregon, but Ohio State winning at Notre Dame and winning at home against Penn State, I've got them number 2. Florida State, clear number 3 to me. I give Washington right now, who would be the Pac-12 champion, the nod at 4. Michigan's looked very impressive, hasn't played anyone. I've got them at 5. Oregon at 6 with the one loss to Washington.
3 weeks ago, had we said Michigan's going to be at 5 because they hadn't played anyone, I would love to hear that argument. If they make that argument tonight, it's going to be considered a flat-out lie.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be thought that they're considering everything that's going on outside looking in.
Just get some clarity. Just answer clearly on whether or not it's even a factor in where you rank Michigan. That's all I want.
That's right. Back at it tomorrow, 3 to 6 Eastern. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow right here on the OutKick Network.